Order. Madam City Clerk, roll call, please.
John Harabedian, Mayor.
Here.
John Caposcia, Mayor Pro Tem.
Here.
Council members Rachel Arizmendi.
Here.
Denise Del Mar.
Here.
And Jean Goss.
Here.
Thank you very much. And Councilmember Arizmendi is going to lead us in the pledge and invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So this past Tuesday, on November 11, we as American citizens recognized Veterans Day. And a special thanks to the VFW here in Sierra Madre, Post 3208, for their ceremony in Memorial Park. And I see a lot of familiar faces here that attended. To say the least, it was a very proud and beautiful day in our town. One thing I have to admit is I did not really know the difference between Veterans Day and Memorial Day. And so when I did a little bit of research, I learned that it was in 1938 that Veterans Day became a national holiday. But the big difference is that in Memorial Day, we pay tribute to those people in service that were either injured or died in service during battle or at war. But Veterans Day in itself, it pays tributes to all Americans, that American veterans that were living or dead, but especially giving thanks to those living veterans who served their country honorably and during war and peacetime. Last month, I lost my grandfather, Alicio Felipe, and he served in World War II. He was at the young age of 102. And this man, every day for probably the last 40 years, had a donut every morning and a shot of whiskey every night. So he lived a good life. But he was one of 16,000 Filipinos in California. And at that time, 40% of the state's California entire Filipino population that was registered for the first draft. He was also recognized in this book, Angel Island. He was detained there on his way back from the Philippines as he was coming back to the United States. But because of him, my grandmother and my father made their way here to California, so I'm very thankful. So in honor of him, my cousin Noel, my cousin Ronald, who served in Afghanistan and Iraq, my nephew Joshua and his wife, and all the veterans from the city of Sierra Madre, and to the men and women who served our country to protect our freedom, whether they are living or dead, I ask for us to take a moment of silence and to give thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I have an approval of the agenda? And just for the audience's sake, we do have a special council meeting after the regularly scheduled meeting. We'll be talking about our general plan update. So were there any changes to the agenda that any of the council members saw that they wanted? If not, then we'll take a motion.
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that was unanimous. Mayor and City Council reports. We'll start on my right. Councilmember Del Mar.
I'm going to save my voice, so nothing from me.
Okay. Councilmember Goss.
Just briefly, attended the Senior Commission meeting last week, and they're all very pleased that there still is a Senior Commission with Brown Act standing. And also I wanted to just say what a wonderful time I had, my son had, and all his friends had. I took 5 trick-or-treaters out on Halloween here in Sierra Madre. We do it every year. We were downtown and really had a blast down in the downtown area. Thank you to all my goodness, so many people come out to make that so special. The merchants downtown, all our volunteers, our public safety staff, all of our staff that gets involved in this, and it's just a tremendous experience for those kids. And then we went up to Alegria later, and the 5, 11, and 12-year-olds and me, and almost lost them all because it's such a popular place. And I just want to say thank you to all the residents up there on that street, A, for your patience with everyone, and B, for your spirit, for doing so much that has really put us on the map on Halloween here in Southern California. That's my report.
Thank you. Councilmember Arizmendi.
I don't have a report, but I do want to thank the staff and all of the citizens in our town for the event of Halloween happenings. It was a great event, amazing turnout. I know probably the majority of folks are really not from Sierra Madre, but it's great to host them, and really well done with the staff.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Nothing to report.
Okay. Well, I attended a meeting with Director Inman yesterday with the other members of the Five City Alliance concerning the 710 tunnel extension. And this meeting was really to talk more about political strategy. The Five City Alliance is really devoted to the legal and scientific analysis of the EIR when it comes out. That's going to be analyzing the 710 tunnel. So we met as a group to come up with a strategy, or discuss at least how we as a community and how the San Gabriel Valley is really going to try to fight the 710 tunnel. And it was a good discussion. It was really just the start of a longer discussion. But I'll just say that, you know, we have at least 5 and maybe more cities that are all on the same page, that all think that the 710 extension, whether by a tunnel or an overground freeway, which luckily has been taken off the table, is a complete disaster. And obviously we want to see an alternative go forward, but we're also, beyond that, just trying to come up with really effective ways of lobbying the right decision makers here, and that's going to be on the Metro Board and the California Transportation Commission. So it was a great meeting. I think Director Inman and I both learned a lot, and I think we're going to end up meeting again in the next month or so. So I'll keep you guys posted. With that, I will open this up for public comment for items not on the agenda.
Good evening. Walsh on Grove. I'm here this evening to ensure an issue I find disturbing is on the record. I also hope that students in public administration and business administration are interested in using this city as a case study. On September 9th, 2014, a council-appointed committee was expected to report on some human resources issues and a reorganization plan. Instead of an open discussion, what we saw was the launching of a predatory attack on the 3 other council members, including the mayor and the mayor pro tem. We went to the dark side of government, and it is the closest I've been to that side in my 40 years in government. As you can tell, I am still really angry about it. The strategy used is one we see in government often and is not respected by supporters of open government. This strategy is predatory and uses the same steps as a child predator uses. There is always something hidden, and it relies on a target audience that is defined as weak, timid, and easily manipulated. The goal is to act swiftly to achieve approval of the document in as short a time as possible. This strategy has 3 steps. Step 1, there is always a very big report. The city manager led out with the first step. We were told that the committee wanted to bring the separate pieces back to the council, but they just couldn't because the parts were so intertwined. So, you were asked to accept the big package. Step 1 always includes a lure that is meant to manipulate the target audience. The lure is always something that everyone can agree on in concept. In this case, it was the opening of City Hall. In the case of a child predator, it would go like this. Hi, little girl, do you like puppies? I bet your mommy and your friends like puppies too. I know where we can get a free puppy. All you have to do is come with me. Councilman, I bet you want to have City Hall open. When I was out walking, everybody told me that they want City Hall open. I know how we can get City Hall open. All you have to do is take this big report and pass it and approve it. In the county, step 1 is known by people who are ethical, is called baffle them with bullshit. That's what we call it, baffle them with bullshit. Step 2 was Councilmember Del Mar. Create a sense of urgency. You have baffle them with bullshit. Step 2, create a sense of urgency. This was brought to us by Councilmember Del Mar, and a child predator might say, little girl, we don't have time to ask your mommy because I'm afraid the puppies will be given away. Other children want them, so we need to go right away. It's urgent that we go now. Council members, we need to get this reorganization passed quickly. We have the holidays coming up. We have a budget season coming up to deal with. It is urgent that we get this passed. It is urgent, urgent, urgent. Step 3 is called bringing it home. That was Councilmember Arizmendi's job. It was her task to remind the council members that they needed to approve the entire document 100%. It is all or nothing, all or nothing, all or nothing. Fortunately, council members, you did not approve the document. There are many secrets in that reorganization, which you are dealing with as recently as your last meeting when Councilmember Goss asked about the impact on the senior commission if recreation items were left out, were cut. The city manager was clearly angry when she responded. She responded through clenched teeth, and she says it was very clear she doesn't want to discuss the reorg in open meetings. Gentlemen, and I'm just speaking to the gentleman here, we are witnessing the worst in government. This committee conspired against you by using this closed government strategy. In so doing, your city manager and your assistant city manager went rogue. We just need to face that fact, as painful as it may be. If you believe, as others have before you, that you want to avoid controversy, that is impossible. The council was sworn in May, and since July, the following has happened. The water fund was finally declared bankrupt in July. The finance director left in August. And it wasn't just about money. It wasn't about salary. Your committee launched a predatory attack against the mayor pro tem, and a council member in September. Key senior staff have gone rogue. 3 key additional staff have left. And as of Thursday, the seniors are pretty darn upset. I believe we're in a crisis, and I think we need brave, strong leaders. And I'm asking you to take decisive action. Be brave. The biggest threat to open government is weak and ineffective leadership and opportunism. Thanks.
Any other comments for items not on the agenda? All right. We will move along. We have a few presentations today. The first is a presentation regarding the safely cohabitating with wildlife in the city. And I believe Councilmember Goss had wanted this to come forward to the council. So if you want to say any words before we get the presentation, I'm happy to give you the floor.
Not really. I think that meeting, when it came up, I think there was a consensus here. We've been hearing a lot from our constituents, and Mr. Hood in particular has taken the initiative here in the community to bring this to our attention, and so I think it warrants a presentation and some discussion.
Thank you. Members of the police department, I believe, are going to be giving this presentation, so.
Good evening, Mayor Harabedian, members of the City Council, Madam City Manager Aguilar and staff. My name is Joe Ortiz, and I'm a sergeant for your police department. The Sierra Madre Police Department works closely in conjunction with our partners, the Department of Fish and Wildlife, along with the Pasadena Humane Society, to address the wildlife encounters with residents. This is why it's so important to have representatives from these agencies here tonight as we discuss tips to safely live with the wildlife in town. In a few minutes, I will end the presentation with a short question and answer period with our experts who are here with us tonight, Warden Adam Smith and Lieutenant Nemesio Artiega from Pasadena Humane Society. The Department of Fish and Wildlife, along with the Pasadena Humane Society, have brought brochures with them to help us educate everybody when it comes to living with the wildlife safely. But before that happens, I want to share a bit of information with you. First, I want to commend the residents of the city for doing just that. Safely living with the wildlife. Other than the 2 snake bites a few months back, residents have been doing a good job of discouraging wildlife from visiting their yards. Secondly, I want to thank the members of our community. Some of them are here tonight, Mr. Hood and a few of your folks, your friends, for taking the time out of their busy schedules and joining the city's efforts to educate our residents and visitors to our community on the hazards of living with wildlife, most importantly bears. Mr. Hood and the friends manufactured and deployed warning signs throughout the city. This was done to help remind folks that with any encounter of wildlife out there, there is a potential for hazard. In my limited research on wildlife in Sierra Madre, specifically the bear community, the root cause appears to be lack of habitat management. So what does this mean? What do we do to safely live with the wildlife in town? Some believe wildlife should be darted and transported to a happy place back up in the mountains. Unbelievably, this happy place doesn't exist with the current drought and lack of feasible food in the wilderness. Others believe we should destroy the animals. In extreme situations, the Department of Fish and Wildlife do have the authority to issue what is called a depredation permit, if warranted. This would also allow a resident to kill a specific animal or hire someone to do so, but the permit procedure is required and must be approved before this can occur. There are those that believe they should cut down their avocado trees and other fruit-bearing vegetation on the property to stop attracting wildlife. A bit extreme, but it's a personal decision at best. Between January and September 2014, the Sierra Madre Police Department has responded to over 250 calls regarding wildlife in residential areas. Of those calls, 222 calls for service were on bears seen in the city. The other 28 calls for service were in response to wildlife like bobcats, wolves, snakes, deer, mountain lions, and even a claim of a hyena was seen in our city. If anyone at any time feels threatened by wildlife in our city, I encourage you to call the Sierra Madre Police Department for help. Our job is to ensure the residents are safe. If officers arrive and observe the wild animal, they may use certain tools to push the wildlife back into the mountains. Sometimes this may require a siren, lights, the officer utilizing the PA feature on the radio to try and talk the wildlife back up in the mountains. Other tools that may be used is deployment of a pepper ball launcher or possibly even a non-lethal shotgun. Again, we're trying to get the attention of the wildlife to go back up in the mountains. In northern Sierra Madre, we have homegrown bears. I think we're all aware of that. And believe it or not, actually teach their young all about hunting, aka dumpster diving, and fishing, aka fish pond skimming. Generations of black bear have grown dependent on human resources and have become habituated. Instead of looking for the hard-to-find berries and seeds in the drought-stricken mountain areas of our foothills, it's much easier for wildlife to grab the leftover McDonald's in the trash can on Monday nights, raid the koi ponds on Tuesday nights, and feast on avocados on Wednesday nights. In closing, I can only ask that we do our part to reduce the attraction for bears and other wildlife in visiting our homes by effective habitat management. Maybe by fixing leaky faucets or sprinklers so the wildlife does not have a convenient way to quench their thirst. Try not to leave animals or animal food outdoors overnight. And for those of us with decks or basements, maybe we can seal up or patch open those areas to prevent wildlife from finding a place to take a nap. Bear-safe trash cans are also an option. In the event a special purpose meeting or a town hall meeting is requested to address this subject matter in the future, I may or would recommend this meeting take place during the early spring, February, March, when bears are ready to come out of their winter naps. At this time, we'll open up the forum for questions from the council. If you have any questions about the protected class of animals such as bear, mountain lion, deer, or even hyenas, I'm going to defer those questions to the Department of Fish and Wildlife. If you have questions about small backyard wildlife, possums, squirrels, raccoons, or rattlesnakes, I'm going to defer the questions to Lieutenant Arteaga with Pasadena Humane.
Great. Thank you very much, Sergeant Ortiz. Any questions for any of the gentlemen?
Just a question on the data here. We're given a sheet that shows where we've seen sightings of bears.
Yes.
And I know that there was a sighting of a bear that's not listed here on my street in Ramona. So these are just the ones that are reported, correct? So
I think the map shows January through September.
Right. Yeah.
Did it fall within that
right.
time?
So what I'm getting at is there's probably more activity than this. These are just the ones that are being seen and reported.
Good possibility.
Yeah. Are you aware of any of our residents being attacked or coming in very close proximity to an angry bear?
I'm not. I do know they come very close, and that's what causes great concern is they're very, very comfortable around our residents. And I just don't want the residents to drop their guard and think, well, it's my pet bear that comes to visit or stays at my house. They're very dangerous. I mean, they can be very dangerous. I think the worst thing you can do is get in the middle of is a mama bear and her cub, because it's extremely dangerous. But
I see
the
that, I see that they're down all the way to Orange Grove. People are watching this at home. We've got bears literally all over the city, so it's really quite eye-opening to see that.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, Sergeant Ortiz, we saw each other at the bear event that was hosted by Assemblymember Holden. And Department of Fish and Wildlife, I remember them emphasizing that what we need to do is make the wildlife uncomfortable in our environment. So, I mean, is that the policy of the Sierra Madre Police Department? When you respond to a bear call, do you do what you can to always chase the bear back into the wilderness, or?
It's a call by call. Again, public safety is at the forefront of what we're doing. When we get that call of a bear seen, whether it be on Baldwin, Alegria, Orange Grove, the first officer that's sent to the call is doing an assessment of where is this at. If it's right outside St. Rita's school at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and it's up in a tree, that kind of raises the things up, raises the level
Yeah.
of our response and how we react to a bear. So it's actually a we do follow the guidelines set forth by Department of Fish and Wildlife along with Pasadena Humane. So we're all kind of working together as a team, but it's a call-by-call response to each officer. And the goal, our ultimate goal, is to protect our residents, number one. But number two is to, this is a term I learned in my studies, was to harass. We're going to harass the wildlife back up in the mountains, and that's the goal,
Yeah.
is to push them back up in the mountains.
Okay, now just a question. Did you receive a call yesterday for a bear in the canyon last night?
I wasn't working last night. Captain, are you aware of it?
There was a call last night as well as this afternoon, so
Okay,
there are the juvenile bears that are still out and about. The
Yeah.
larger bears appear to have dissipated, at least for the time being. The weather is the wild card here. As long as
Okay.
the weather stays dry, there's a likelihood they'll stay out
Yeah.
longer.
the reason I'm asking is because I'm wondering if our citizens have just become so accustomed that when they see a bear, they don't necessarily call the police. And my question is, should they? Should we always be reporting a bear sighting in a residential area to the police?
I think the experience that we've had with the bear sightings is that if you're in fear for your life for a reason, if you're in fear for your children's safety, if you're in fear for any reason, yes, call the police department and we'll get there. Let us protect you. Let
Yeah.
us protect your homes. Let us protect your children, and let us make that call whether we need to make the call of Fish and Game. You know, there are folks up in the canyon areas that are very, very comfortable with bear sightings, and they don't call the police department.
Well, my fear is that we are now further training that bear to be comfortable among our residential neighborhoods. So I'm just asking the question, should it be a policy that the police department always ask of the citizens when they see a bear to report it, so that if you're not dealing with a bigger problem in town, that you'll come up and do what you can to discourage the bear from being in this area?
Let me say this, if I can, for as far as the department.
Captain, can you come to the mic for the TV?
I'd like to say this, and I'll defer to wildlife, Fish and Wildlife. But one of the things that's a concern is, if we respond to every call, the concern is we try to harass the bear, but we don't want to over-agitate the bear and cause him to become a danger in trying to get north. So it really comes down on a case-by-case basis and the situation that we're dealing with. For example, if it's a Saturday afternoon, there's a lot of people out, and the bear is going from house to house, yes, we're going to take more assertive action to try to contain that bear and drive him up to the hills. On the other hand, if it's middle of the afternoon during the week, there's no kids about, there's not a whole lot of residents out, then it's going to just be monitoring the bear. Because again, the balance is if we shoot the pepper ball or use the beanbag shotgun, if we get the wrong bear who's hungry, who's thirsty, and we agitate it too much, now it becomes more of a danger than if we just monitor it. So it's a balance, and it's hard sometimes for us to make that decision. So it really depends on what the bear is exhibiting, what the people are saying this particular bear is. Obviously, if we become aware that a bear is showing any type of aggression, we're immediately gonna call our partners to respond, and we're gonna keep that bear contained until such time as the appropriate action can be taken by them.
All over LA County, and I'm used to helicopters and stuff, and you just kind of have to put it out and remain loyal to the situation, not let it get too involved. And typically, all the wardens do a really good job of that.
Mr. Smith, in your experience, because I think this is a really important point, have you ever seen a bear attack a human being that wasn't doing something stupid?
No, generally, an attack comes from someone approaching the bear
Right.
or feeding the bear and trying to get real close or surprising it and coming up on it with the cubs, or they corner it in their yard accidentally. So it's important, as the sergeant said, people can't really let their guard down even if they're used to seeing the bears. When you step out your back door at night, you need, but attacks are really rare, and it's kind of a general term. We've had one in Riverside County that was deemed an attack, but it was a young lady sleeping on a porch in a sleeping bag, and the bear just grabbed her foot at night, and it's deemed an attack because there's a contact with a human being. But I'm not aware of one around here where someone was seriously injured.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? And Mr. Artiega, did you want to say anything from the Humane Society or?
No, I'm just here to answer any questions the council or the public may have
Right.
regarding small wildlife.
Yeah. Because to me, the bears, where I live now, it's a daily occurrence. They come down and we see them all the time, and the bear cans really work well. The neighbors that have the bear cans, the bears don't come to them, and those that do, shockingly, they go to the ones that you can't lock the top. So, what I think what a bigger concern is really the increase in the sightings of mountain lions these days. Because those mountain lions are aggressive and they will attack. So, is there any just quick advice there on any hikers? One of my neighbors was walking his dog up the street a couple days ago and saw a mountain lion at like 6:30 in the morning. Still a little dark, but which is scary because that's a little bit. I think that's rarer to see a mountain lion when the light is coming out. Usually either it's a sick mountain lion during the day or you usually see them at night. So
It's more rare to see them in the middle of the day. They are still kind of active in the early hours. Dawn and dusk, they're out and about. They're obviously more active when it's dark in the evenings, but it's not totally uncommon to see them early mornings. They can still be out and about. Any place where there's deer populations, there's going to be mountain lions. That's there, and that kind of goes, it's all related. If you're feeding small wildlife, you're going to bring in the predators who feed on the raccoons, whether it's bobcats or mountain lions or bears, whatever. So getting the trash cans is great if everybody does it, but eliminating food sources and water sources and yards is extremely important as well.
Can you give just very quickly before we conclude here 1 minute advice? If you see a bear, this is what you do. If you see a mountain lion, this is what you do. We hear it all the time, but it's good to
It's
reiterate.
same for both. Make a lot of noise, make yourself seem as big as possible, put your arms out, wave your hands, you can throw rocks, whatever you want to do. Make a lot of noise, yell at him. You don't want to turn and run. You don't want to trigger that pursuit policy. That pursuit instinct by the predator. But I've come in contact with not a lot of mountain lions. Mountain lions are rare to be seen, but a lot of bears. And for the most part, if you make noise and, I don't want to say be aggressive, we don't want to approach them, but you make a lot of noise, throw some things, they almost always turn.
So that's a good point. We're going to have a town hall, and has the date been set?
No, at this point, it's in the report.
Suggested in the spring.
Suggested in the spring, because they're gonna be hibernating.
Mm-hmm.
The activity will diminish greatly in the winter, and they'll become active again in the spring.
Great. Yeah, it's a great idea. Thank you very much. Hopefully you guys can come back and help us at that town hall. Thank you. We will move on to a presentation on the status of the Santa Anita Stormwater Flood Management and Seismic Strengthening Project, and we have a representative here from the LA County Department of Public Works. Matt Frary, that's how you say it?
That's correct.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. I have a brief presentation, actually, and I think we'll get this. Aha. All right, well, good evening again. My name, again, is Matt Ferrari. I'm a civil engineer from the County of Los Angeles Department of Public Works. And tonight I'll be presenting to the council an overview of the project, the Santa Anita Stormwater Flood Management and Seismic Strengthening Project, and provide a brief status update, as you mentioned. Before doing so, I want to just give a brief overview of who we are. We are the Los Angeles County Flood Control District. This slide shows a number of facts about the district itself. As you'll note, we're coming up on our 100-year anniversary, actually. It was state legislature that called the district into being. The reason was there was a bunch of regional floods in 1914. And so the next year was state legislature that enacted this. In modern times, we're actually a component of the LA County Department of Public Works, and the mission is to control and conserve stormwater within the district boundaries. You'll see a list here of a lot of the different facilities that make up our complex system. To serve that mission, these are both flood protection facilities as well as water conservation facilities. You can see that the district itself encompasses a large portion of LA County. It's over 3,000 square miles, 85 cities, over 2 million land parcels. And overall, these facilities that you see on the map play a big part in the region's water supply, particularly the groundwater, which actually makes up about a third of the region's overall supply. And into the project here, I want to give a brief overview. What you see on the right-hand side is an aerial image. The top of the screen is north, and this is the Santa Anita Canyon that you see. So the project itself is going to modify 3 of the facilities within that canyon: the dam, the headworks, and the debris dam. And if you start up in the mountains, you can see on the top of that graphic that the dam is the most, furthest upstream facility. That's where this whole process starts. We capture stormwater there, and we're able to release it and send it down this system. And you see down as you move forward, we get to the headworks. This is a diversion facility, and it's at the headworks where we actually have the ability to just let the water continue to flow downstream. We also can impound it. We can actually collect the water there, and there's some gates, some pipelines. And what you see on the map is that yellow line. It's actually the diversion pipeline that can run then along through those neighborhoods right there. There's a little outlet that does go to Santa Anita Spreading Grounds in Arcadia, but the main leg there goes off to the west to the Sierra Madre Spreading Grounds, where the water is allowed to then recharge the groundwater supply. Keep moving forward down, there's the debris dam. This is another facility that is being upgraded. And then directly south of that, you see the spreading grounds on the west-hand side. That's also recharging the same groundwater basin. That's called the Santa Anita Spreading Grounds. And then to the east of that is the sediment placement site, which is exactly that, a place of storage of sediment. The graphic on the left is the same thing. It's just a flowchart form. It's got a close-up of each facility. You can see how it goes from the dam to the diversion structure in the top left. The bottom left is that debris dam, and then again, there's the 2 spreading grounds that can receive the water based on how the water is diverted. Of interest to Sierra Madre is really that headworks facility. And what you see in that top left picture is an earthen berm, and then that little structure up against the face of the mountain is where the gates are housed that actually then feed that pipeline and send the water over to the Sierra Madre Spreading Grounds. Like I mentioned, there's 3 components that are a part of this current project. Those are listed in the middle section on this slide. These are the names of those projects. It's the dam spillway modification, the headworks improvement, and the debris dam seismic strengthening. But did want to note that there's also a few other components that are independent of these projects, but still a part of the greater picture. You see in the first section are the 2 that were previously completed. In 2009, we had a phase 1 enlargement of the Santa Anita Spreading Grounds. In 2013, we did some seismic work on the dam that's furthest upstream. And that was done concurrently with that sediment removal project just a couple years back. And then in the third section, you see that we also have a current process for the Santa Anita Spreading Grounds. It's really phase 2. It's completing the enhancements there. And then the box at the bottom is just a summary of really the estimated cost for this project. You see it's $40 million overall. Half of that is coming from a state grant, the other half being done by all local partners. You can see the Flood Control District is covering a large portion, but the other 3 partners is the City of Arcadia, City of Sierra Madre, and also the Raymond Basin Management Board. The funds that are coming from Sierra Madre are listed there, and there was actually an agreement that was executed in the spring of 2013 to establish these splits. Quick summary of the benefits. It's kind of threefold. The first one is to reduce flood risk to downstream communities. We do that 2 ways. One is at the dam, we're modifying the spillway to pass the probable maximum flood. All that is really the largest amount of water that's anticipated to ever come down that canyon. If it were just to spill over the dam itself, it can cause a lot of damage, erosion. It washes debris down to all the residences downstream. It can clog those pipelines that divert the water. Not a good thing. So this centers it and actually sends it down in a controlled fashion. Remediating the seismic safety issues at the Santa Anita debris dam allows it to actually impound water. And then that takes us to the second one, which really enhances sustainability of the local water supply. You see the three ways that we're doing that through storage capabilities, rehabilitating that diversion structure, modernizing facilities, new monitoring and control systems. But the big number to note here is that it will increase the basin supply by over 500 acre-feet per year. And as a just quick point of reference, 1 acre-feet is typically just 2 households of 4. So you're looking at over 1,000 households water supply for over a year from some of these improvements. And then the third aspect is to improve all-weather access to the Arcadia Wilderness Park. There's a bridge, a culvert crossing right now that's being modified to actually allow larger storm flows to pass. And then lastly, want to highlight the schedule here. As mentioned earlier, we're in the middle of a public review period for our environmental document. It's a mitigated negative declaration. We're right about the halfway point right now. There's 3 weeks remaining, and the deadline for public review comment is December 4th. We did have a public meeting last Wednesday night that was hosted in Arcadia, and really turned out pretty well. It was something that we had, basically a detailed overview of both the project, each of these components. We elaborated on what was going on, what some of the impacts were, went through the environmental document itself, had a question and answer time, and then also some individual stations where we could discuss with those that were present any concerns that they might have or just clarifying questions. As we move forward, we're still doing outreach to make sure the public gets a say on this project. We're actually presenting to the Sierra Madre Energy and Environmental and Natural Resources Commission next week. But otherwise, we'll be moving forward to finalize this document in the spring of next year. And then you can see the dates for the construction start listed here as well. The dam's estimated to take about 10 months, and then the other 2 components there, the headworks and the debris dam, are estimated to take about 6 months. So we're looking forward to getting those actually into the construction process. Design has gone smoothly so far, and we're grateful really to have a lot of good funding partners, good support. It's a critical project, and we thank Sierra Madre for being involved with this, and we welcome any questions.
I always defer to our resident engineer.
This is more for the public, but we're spending about $1 million Sierra Madre on this. But, I mean, I just do the quick math on this. But let me ask a question. 500 acre-feet a year, the bulk of that water really comes to Sierra Madre, because most of it is diverted to the Sierra Madre spreading grounds. Whatever is diverted to the Santa Anita spreading grounds is shared equally between whoever produces from the basin. Well, maybe you're not the person to even answer that question.
Well, yeah, I can give a brief summary, actually. It's the flood control district, number one, we're not actually using any of this water. It is facilities to serve both Arcadia and Sierra Madre. So the bulk of that water, Sierra Madre actually has the water right for the 30 CFS beyond what would naturally come down through the natural channel.
Yeah. So we get our water first before you would divert to the Santa Anita.
Correct, yep.
But then everything that goes to Santa Anita, we get our share of that anyway, because as it percolates down, it builds up the aquifer, then we just get our natural, 1/3 of the adjudicated allocation. But if it goes to the Sierra Madre spreading grounds, that's our water that we pull out later. So I'm just making this point because if you just do quick math and figure the project is worth about 50 years it's good for, I mean, we're getting about $4 million worth of benefit from this, and we're spending $1 million. So I think it's a great deal, and that's why I voted for it wholeheartedly in 2013. But
Excellent.
I just want to point that out to the folks listening.
And in reality as well, 15 years was probably a short estimate, so it
50 years, I said.
50, okay.
50, yeah. Maybe that's too long?
No, 50 years is,
Well, look how long it's been there since the 50s.
Well,
right?
the dam itself has been there since the 20s.
But
The
our
dam in the
structure-
50s, the structure in the 50s, yes, and it's still going strong, so.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, and maybe that answers my question, because I was curious as to the costs that were allocated to Sierra Madre versus Arcadia, and I just automatically assume Arcadia would have a bigger share, lion's share of it. But is that the reason why, is because we benefit more than Arcadia?
Yeah, those splits tie back to when actually some of the original calculations were done as far as even applying for the grant and looking back at the water rights and how it's distributed. So there's actually an equation with the proper ratios to divvy it up.
I think we're getting a good.
Yeah, we're getting a good deal.
We discussed that multiple times when we were approving this, so. But it's a good question. as soon as you see the number, when we're paying more than Arcadia, everyone it raises flags. But any other questions for Mr. Ferrari? Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you so much.
It's great to see this actually getting done after so many years of talking about it, so
Appreciate
it.
Would you like Director Inman to talk a little bit about the formula on the sharing of the cost? Just very quickly, you can do it in 2 sentences?
Sure, if you'd like to.
Mhm.
You look comfortable back there.
Only
so-
2 sentences, Bruce.
Two, not just killed one. Actually, the cost-sharing benefit was designed around the way the communities would share the benefit. Basically, it was felt that the city of Arcadia would benefit more from the debris dam work, so they were assigned a larger share of that, and we would benefit more from the diversion structure, so we received the share of that.
Mhm.
Pretty much the quickest, simplest way I can describe it.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And you're up next, right?
I am, but I need to change presentations
Okay.
here.
Well, great. We'll wait. And we also have Dr. Baribeau with us as well. Will you be presenting with Director Inman? Okay, great.
Yes. The next presentation is our monthly water conservation update and an update regarding our water treatment to deal with the colored water issue.
All right, and again, good evening, Council and Mayor. This again is our monthly update on our water supply. I've put together a number of pictures here of locations not within the city of Sierra Madre. Have no idea where these came from, but this is exactly the kind of thing that we're working very hard to eliminate in Sierra Madre, and we're doing a great job so far. For October of this year, our conservation rate increased by 9.3% over last October, so we're still showing progress and getting better. Total conservation over the base year is now at 24.7% for October, and in that month we saved 6.5 million gallons. November, we've started out like gangbusters. Our conservation rate is almost 29% over the same period last year. Our conservation is at 34.6% over that base year, and already this month we've saved well over what we saved in October. So we're doing a great job. The state is now requiring that we report gallons per capita daily of our water use, and they're publishing this information on their website. You may have seen an article in recent newspapers about what some of our surrounding communities are doing. The September numbers were posted. That's the most recent that's up there, and Sierra Madre's gallons per capita daily for September was 203. We were, out of the 350 reporting agencies listed on that website, we were number 280. So although we're doing a great job, we're still not down there with the lowest. The lowest was San Francisco at roughly 46 gallons per capita daily. And I wouldn't think we'd ever get there because, as you know, San Francisco doesn't have much in the way of large green lawns. For October, I'm projecting that our gallons per capita daily will improve to 187, and I'm projecting that it'll be about 155 in November. So we are making progress on that. Again, this is my monthly slide on the one-year history of our sample, well 5. And I'm pleased to note that we've reversed the trend since last month, and we're up 2.5 feet in water levels since the last report was provided to you on October 9th. And in terms of the water treatment update, Dr. Baribeau will give you more technical information, but we're now into our 3rd week of uninterrupted treatment. We're now seeing an orthophosphate residual in all of our flushing sites. We're able to flush the hydrants for shorter periods and at less velocity, and as a result, we're using 25% less water for flushing than we have been. And this is enabling us to make better use, a more consistent use of our water tender for capturing that water for reuse. And with that, I'd like to introduce Dr. Baribeau, and she will talk a little bit more about the treatment program. And this, you might remember that's the button. Okay.
Well, thank you again for having me tonight. So I just want to present a brief flavor of the results that we are seeing right now following the introduction of the corrosion inhibitor. And as a reminder, so the corrosion inhibitor that was selected is a blend of orthophosphate and zinc. And that inhibitor was selected following testing that has been done at the city yard office building and has shown promising result. And also has been studying at the desktop, looking at water quality data from the city and the different sources that the city, different source water that the city is using. And it's also consistent with the different types of materials that we find in the city's distribution system. So these are like the three different steps that we follow to select this particular inhibitor. It was first introduced in the distribution system on October 1st, and it took a little bit of time to get stable dose and stable concentration. On October 20, really, this is when we started having a stable dose in the system. And as I said, I'm just going to show a flavor of the results here and some preliminary observation using just a handful of water quality parameters. And so the first slide that I want to show you with the data is actually the orthophosphate concentration. So it's the main substance, the main compound in the corrosion inhibitor. And what you can see on the lower left graph is actually the orthophosphate concentration in the city's reservoirs. And in the top right graph, you're looking at the concentration in 4 sites in the distribution system pipes. And as you can see here on this slide, you can see the data. This is real life data. It goes up, it goes down, it goes a little bit sometimes in every direction. It's not straightforward to analyze. And so this is what we're seeing here. And you have the data since October 1st when we first started introducing the orthophosphate and zinc blend in the distribution system. So if you just look at the kind of the trends in this, don't pay too much attention to individual dots, but you can see there's a general trend in increasing concentration in there. And so you can see the orthophosphate, since it was introduced, it's slowly we're starting to see it more and more in the system. At the beginning, a large part of it was actually being, if I can say so, absorbed in the corrosion products, and it was kind of doing its work in the distribution system. And now slowly we're starting to see the residual, and we are targeting a level of 0.75 milligrams per liter. So if we look at the other substance that we find in the corrosion inhibitor is actually zinc. And here it's a little bit clearer because there was definitely no background zinc in the system. But you can see it took even longer to start seeing the zinc appearing as a residual in the system. And with an orthophosphate concentration of 0.75, the zinc concentration will be 0.15. And if you look at this on the chart, we're not quite there yet. So it really shows that the product is still doing its work in the system, and we can still expect to see some additional benefit from feeding the product in the system. Here what I want to show you is disinfectant stability, actually, kind of as an indicator of general water quality. And the two graphs that you have here are a little bit different than the other ones. On the lower left graph, you see the disinfectant, the total chlorine residual on the red line since October 2013, so pretty much a year of data on this one. On the upper graph, you have the data since October 2014, so or September of 2014, I'm sorry. So you have about a month of data before we started seeding the corrosion inhibitor and a month of data after. Now, this is just one sampling location in the distribution system, but when you look at all the different sampling locations and all the data together, we can see that there's definitely a trend towards having a disinfectant concentration that is more stable throughout the system, and it also tends to be higher, so easier to maintain it with the corrosion inhibitor. Now, I write appear here in my description because I did a little bit of statistic on the data as much as I could, and the difference is not yet statistically significant. It is there, but there's still some work that needs to be done at that level. When we look at iron concentration, and iron being the substance that is responsible for the red water color that has been observed, what we could see here is that in most of the distribution system site, in the reservoirs and in the distribution system, the iron concentration is definitely lower. And in this case, the differences are statistically significant. And again, here you have on the lower left, you have data since as much time as I could, so since March 2014 and all the way to now. On the top right, you have just since October of 2014, so kind of like a blown up of the most recent data. And lastly, I want to talk about nitrite. Nitrite being an indicator of nitrification, and nitrification being a phenomena that we can find in water that is has a chloramine as a residual disinfectant, which is the case with MWD water. And what we can see here, which was actually quite interesting, is if you look at the lower graph, you have the data since October 2013, and you can see some like high concentration of nitrite that suggests that nitrification may be occurring in the distribution system over, especially this summer. But when the inhibitor started being fed, right away the nitrite concentration decreased to much lower value, barely detectable value. So there's definitely a sign here that it appears that the corrosion inhibitor seems to make the system less prone to nitrification, which is something that we were expecting as well. Now, please keep in mind that the inhibitor was introduced in early October, which is also consistent with the change in weather. And so we're seeing two things here. We're seeing the effect of the corrosion inhibitor, and we're also seeing the effect of a change in source water and water quality, and also in water consumption in the distribution system. So, you know, I believe it's going to be important to continue the monitoring and see in the future where all this is going to bring us. The last piece of information I want to share with you is about flushing. And as Mr. Inman mentioned, flushing has actually shown some promising trends there too. And so just if we step back a little bit and we look at the huge effort that the city is investing on that, in that area, the city flushes 30 sites every week. And they alternate. They also have like on the fourth week a little bit fewer sites. And what we saw, and I just look at 3 events, but before the introduction of the corrosion inhibitor, the total flushing time per week was in the order of 250 to 275 minutes. And that's the total flushing time for all the 30 sites. Now, after the introduction of the corrosion inhibitor, we're seeing 2 different things. So on one hand, we had much lower flushing time, in the low 200, and another event was still a little bit high. And so it's going to be interesting to see in the future where these numbers evolve and, the true benefit of the corrosion inhibitor. But one of the things that was clear is that actually when we start the flushing, there's definitely fewer sites with low chlorine residual at the beginning of the flushing since we introduced the corrosion inhibitor. And also at the same time, the iron concentration are also not as high as what we used to see. So it's definitely some promising result. But again, these are very preliminary data. You can see how they fluctuate, and it's not always clear. So it's important to continue the monitoring and keep a close eye and continue the analysis of these data. So thank you very much. I don't know if you have questions.
Any questions?
Maybe I missed it. Why weren't the Miramonte and the other reservoir, why wasn't that tested for iron?
It's a good question. I'm also wondering myself. This is part of what, as I said, the coming weeks are going to bring us is all answers to those questions. I was also very surprised when I saw that. Other reservoirs actually was the opposite, but for some reason these 2 reservoirs did not show that trend, and I'm still questioning it.
Okay.
Dr. Barrabo, how are we doing on the lead testing?
On the lead, do you want me to answer that one, or?
On the lead and copper testing, we're completed with that, and we've got all the results back, and we're looking pretty good there.
Looking good?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Be happy to answer any other questions council has.
So do we you expect this is still an ongoing, we should be continuing to get improvement as we go?
Yes, we should be continuing to get improvement. As you can see from the charts, it's not a linear kind of a progression. There's multiple effects here with the treatment, the water temperature coming into the system, the amount of water being used in the community, which is turnover in the system.
Yeah.
There's multiple things that affect the water quality, and so it will be an ongoing process.
How are the complaints from the residents coming in? Are we getting fewer complaints or?
We're getting fewer complaints. They're becoming actually far less frequent, but we know that there still are residents out there, there still are customers that are getting discolored water.
Yeah. I'm still pouring a couple pitchers out myself in the morning. It's not that it's really discolored, it's more like it's just a little bit cloudy. And it takes about 3 pitchers this size to clear it. I know that's in my pipes, but I was hoping that this would clear that up too, but I just need to be
Well,
patient.
eventually it gets into the pipes in your
Okay.
house as well. Just takes a little longer.
Director Inman, just curious, you said you now are using the water tender now to capture some of the water when you're flushing.
Yes, we're able to
And
use
because
it
it's
a good
less
deal more than we were in
Right.
the past because we aren't having to flush at such high velocities.
Great, great.
We are seeing improvement, and so what you're saying is that we cannot come up with a reasonable calculation about what part the orthophosphate is playing in the improved results. We don't know what that's really doing at this point.
I'm sorry, I would have to really defer that question to Dr. Baribeau.
It's an interesting question. I would say not yet. I would not want to pronounce myself yet. We really have just 3 weeks of data since the dose has been stabilized. And as you can see, it's not straightforward. There's a lot of changes happening, as Mr. Inman mentioned. And so eventually it will be interesting to see what the effect, but it's too premature to say that.
So the plan is to keep flushing, maybe reduction of flushing somewhat, but the plan is to continue that.
Yeah, flushing as needed, definitely. The other thing also to consider is the city has a lot of dead ends. You're really at the foothill, obviously, because of the configuration of the system. And so there will always be areas where you have dead ends and where flushing is going to be necessary. Now, hopefully we will be able to decrease the flushing time, but completely eliminating flushing may be difficult to do.
What would you recommend as far as when you want to report back? Again, we don't want to have you keep coming every week if it's not necessary. I mean, you need how much time before you think you'd be ready to give us a more conclusive report?
The city decreased the monitoring right now to once per week because we can see we had the first results and we can see that all the data basically is expected, so there was no major surprises there. So we're having a weekly monitoring right now. Coming back in 1 month.
Well, is 1 month a good time, or is 2 months better? We don't want to.
Probably 2 months would be better. And then at that point also we could talk at the same time at the startup of the pilot testing and some of the bench scale testing that is also in discussion at the moment.
Okay.
So perhaps with Mr. Inman agreements, I think 2 months would be a fair time period.
Great. We'll note that, and thank you very much, Doctor, for joining us and for giving us that presentation, and Director Inman, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to consent calendar.
There's 6 items on the consent calendar this evening, Mayor and City Council. The first one, consent calendar item 1A, is adoption of resolution 1486 approving our demands. At 1B is a receive and file report regarding gas tax adjustments pursuant to a audit of our gas tax funds. At 1C is notice of completion for the Community Development Block Grant ADA, which was the accessible ramps in the sidewalk project. It's a recommendation that the City Council authorize staff to issue the notice of completion with the County Clerk's Office. At 1D is a resolution number 1485, casting Sierra Madre's vote for Rosemead Councilmember Margaret Clark for the San Gabriel Basin Water Quality Authority Board for cities without pumping rights. At 1E is a memorandum of understanding between the cities of Arcadia, Azusa, Bradbury, Duarte, Monrovia, and Sierra Madre, and the County of Los Angeles and the Los Angeles County Flood Control District relating to the administration and cost sharing for the Coordinated Integrated Monitoring Program for the Rio Hondo San Gabriel Valley Water Quality Group. As you're aware, this is part of our ongoing MPDES activity. At 1F is a recommendation for the council to reject bids for the replastering of the municipal pool and to direct staff to re-advertise for new bids. That concludes staff's presentation. We'd be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Any questions on 1A? The warrants? What about B, gas tax?
Yeah, on item B, I'd appreciate if the city manager can just give a quick, as I say, ducks and bunnies version of that. I know it's a lot of stuff there with puts and takes on the accounting side, but I think it'd be useful just to, have a simpler understanding of what has taken place there.
The state will periodically come through and audit cities' gas tax funds. This audit actually covered the period of 2004 to 2007, so it goes quite a way back. I'm sorry, 2004 to 2012. At the conclusion, there were a number of findings. Staff was able to resolve most of them through the audit process. There were 3 findings that remained. Probably the easiest way to describe it is that we don't have to return any gas tax funds to the state, number 1. Number 2, we were able to find eligible expenditures in other funds or in the gas tax funds themselves to be able to resolve the audit findings. Normally, something like this, I have to say, in all the cities I've ever worked for, would not come before the city council, except that it is my personal preference that whenever we do get an audit and there are findings, we get lots of audits and they've always come back nice and clean without any findings. But in this case, we did get a couple of findings and they do result in some journal entries that need to be made in the current audit, but we do not need to send money back to the state.
Yeah.
Would be the easiest way to explain it. So for transparency and to let you know, normally this would just be adjusted in your current audit. It'd be a little footnote buried on page 203.
Yeah.
But I felt it was significant enough to bring it to the council's attention.
The bottom line, though, is we're really out of all these puts and takes, there's about $46,000 that is from the general fund that will be used to satisfy this by spending the money on street improvements. Is that fair characterization?
We have our interim director here, Misty Chen. She's more familiar with the details. I must say she's the one was able to end up with really a positive result for Sierra Madre. Most cities would be sending a check back to the state and we're not. So I'd like to thank her for that.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, staff. Misty Chang, Interim Finance Director. To explain each of the findings, I don't know if you'd want me to do that, but essentially no monies need to be returned to the state at all, State Controller's Office that is, and rather journal entries were made, and yes, in some cases the journal entry was made from the general fund to the gas tax fund or vice versa. In any case, it was a shifting of monies through interfund transfers, again, a journal entry that is done internally in the accounting books. If you'd like, I can explain each one
Well,
because-
rather than explain each one, I just wanted to net it out. I mean, my understanding is that had we not been audited, or had these findings not been found, we would have $46,000 or so in the general fund that we could spend on anything, but in this case, we now will spend the money on street repair to make up for the fact that we didn't spend the money when we were supposed to. I'm not sure if that's the right way to say
I think
it.
what's confusing is the amount is the first finding, it's the 28,000 is moving from the general fund to the gas tax fund.
Is it?
It's 28,000.
Yes, correct. It's 28,000 in the first finding.
Right.
And in that case, that gas tax fund in the year of 2007 had gone into the deficit, into a negative 28,000. In a regular case, what you do is just have the general fund subsidize that, and that's shown in the regular CAFR or financial statement report. However, the state controller's office comes back many years later and audits you from many years back, and they say, no, you can't have a negative fund balance, therefore you must either return the money, or in this case, I was able to do the creative accounting and simply do a transfer via journal entry from the general fund to the gas tax.
Okay,
That
right.
was the first finding.
yeah, okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And nice to meet you, by the way. We hadn't met.
That's right. First appearance. It's a tough question, so thank you. Any other questions on that? No? 1C, any questions? 1D? 1E? I do have a question on 1E.
Too.
But Mr. Goss, go ahead.
Well, actually, it's not a question. Uh-oh.
We do have James Carlson here this evening.
Yeah, I didn't want to pull it because I didn't want to dig into it too deeply, but I think for the benefit of people watching at home, I think we need to just remind them what this MPDES is. We just discussed it in the last meeting. We were discussing the budget implications of it over the long term. And it's all good. It looks to me it's pretty good. We've got a good deal going here with the member cities in this, under this agreement. But can you just kind of summarize it real quick?
Sure. The new NPDES permit allows a little bit of customization. We're working with the cities of Arcadia, Monrovia, Bradbury, Duarte, Azusa, as well as the LA County Public Works and Flood Control District to pool our resources. And effectively, we're looking at 2 major monitoring sites for our collective group as opposed to each entity having to do 2 or 3. We're taking advantage of this portion of the permit to work collectively and to customize our own regulations. And that's why we believe that it's important to start with monitoring as early as possible so that you are actually chasing the pollutants that you are contributing to, as opposed to pollutants that were measured much further downstream and much further different land uses and such. And we feel we're going to save a lot of money by doing it that way. So the MOU has a cost breakdown. Basically, I believe it's 10% across the board, and then it's by population or land area. Sierra Madre gets quite an advantage working with some of these other cities that way.
James, thank you very much. My question was more directed to the numbers, the costs that are going to be allocated to Sierra Madre over the next 4 or 5 years. Were those numbers reflected in the budget that we looked at?
Yes.
So, and we didn't touch that. I mean, we were adjusting numbers that were more project-based, not dealing with this, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you. And are we keeping the mustache? Is that a going forward? Is that
For November.
okay?
For Men's
good.
Health.
Well, are you soliciting donations?
I haven't got there.
Okay. It looks good. Looks good. All right. Thank you. And 1F. How hard is it to plaster a pool these days? I mean, I can't believe this, but I guess we'll have to go back out. Just for the folks watching at home, we're trying to replaster our pool. We're going to have to go back out to bid because we didn't get sufficient bids. With that, I will open this up for public comment. And we'll bring it back. Any discussion before we approve? If not, we can have a motion.
I move that we approve the consent calendar as presented.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And that was unanimous. We'll move on to item number 2. It's a public hearing on the Metro Senior 30-day pass being added to the fee schedule.
We do have Recreation Manager, Community Services Manager Adam Matsumoto giving a brief presentation on this. It is a public hearing because it pertains to fees.
Good evening, Mayor Harabedian and members of the City Council. Metro introduced a fare increase on September 15th of 2014 of this year. This increase raised the price of the Metro Senior Pass sold at a subsidized rate by the city. The fare increased from $14 to $20. We took this before the Senior Community Commission and they approved a $6 subsidy for the cost of the senior pass to mitigate the fare increase by Metro. This rate brings down the senior pass to $10.50 for seniors that qualify for the 30-day pass. Staff is recommending the council approve resolution 1481, officially adopting the subsidized fee for the Metro Senior Pass on the fee schedule. This concludes my brief presentation, and I can answer any questions the council may have.
Questions, council members? I had one, and I think this is very nice of the Senior Commission to subsidize. My question, I guess, going forward is how much money do we have in the senior donation account? And it's not a lot of money every year. I mean, we're talking on average, what, $700, $800 a year, but, you know.
No.
It's not a lot of money based on the past fiscal
How much
year.
is it, Madam City Manager? What's the?
About, they generate about $12,000 a year for their programs.
And what will
And
the cost
sitting
of
in-
this be a year?
It's approximately $1,500.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, you know, we have enough in that account to where the general fund isn't going to be impacted?
No.
Okay.
No. A lot more money.
Just a comment on that. I mean, if they did not have the money, what would we do? Come back and redo the fee again? Because
No, the way this resolution is ingeniously worded, if they don't subsidize it, then it just becomes what our Prop A, the funds we get from Prop A for it, minus the cost of the pass. So the cost to the purchaser
Cost
will
goes
go
up.
up automatically.
Okay, that's- I
Because the
just wanted-
senior
And
amount would be
that was my
zero.
question, is
Never
that,
gonna
you know,
come out of
at a
general
certain
fund.
point, does the general fund ever get
The way
dinged?
they've
So-
worded it, if the senior portion goes away, then it's just the subsidy minus the cost.
All right. Great. Thank you. I don't think we're going to have any questions from the council. Any questions from the public? We'll open the public hearing up.
Just a quick acknowledgement. In case the people living over at Climb are not watching Channel 3 and hearing this, is there someone from the City Hall that could go over and let them know? There's quite a few over 62 years of age that use public transportation. Since we have nothing printed in Braille, they won't be aware of these changes. Thanks.
Thank you. Barbara Lee? How do we do outreach for this? I mean, is this something that the city advertises, that we subsidize this, or?
Currently, right now, we don't do any advertising or marketing for the subsidized rate. It is something, upon approval, we probably would include as part of our Senior Moments newsletter that goes
Okay.
out on a monthly basis, and that would probably be the extent of the outreach. However, we could always look to groups like Climb or the Senior Housing Project and Kensington, once it opens, to make them aware of that.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
That subsidy.
Thank you. Any other comments? We'll bring it back for discussion. Any points before we vote?
No, but just special recognition to Senior Commission for subsidizing. I think it's great, and it would be, if and when this passes, that we ensure that there is outreach to the community. So thank you to Senior Commission.
Hear, hear. Entertain a motion.
Move to approve, as stated.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. And that was none opposed. It's unanimous. We'll move on to item number 3. And this is the consideration of a property sale inspection program. This was a holdover from last meeting.
We do have Interim Director of Planning and Community Preservation, Cardoso, with the presentation.
Good evening, Mayor Harabedian and members of the City Council. As you know, the city's strategic plan includes a 3-year goal to make Sierra Madre a environmentally sustainable community, including water conservation. Consideration of a property sale inspection program is identified in your list of water conservation policies as a number 2 priority, and it needs to be established during the water moratorium. A property sales inspection program would require that an application be submitted for a certificate of inspection before the sale, rent, or lease of a property in the city, a residential building more specifically. An inspection of the property would be conducted by city officials such as a housing inspector or a building inspector to inspect a property for a list of items, including compliance with zoning code, compliance with building, health and safety codes, illegal non-permitted additions, illegal conversion of garage to other habitable use, illegal second units, more kitchens than are permitted by code, installation of low-flow appliances such as toilets, shower faucets, etc., smart irrigation sprinkler controllers with rain sensors, working smoke detectors, legible numbers on the exterior of the house, an automatic earthquake gas shutoff valve. Of course, should the City Council wish to establish such an inspection program, it may also wish to discuss if all of these items or maybe some of these items would be appropriate to include in that inspection program. Due to the age of many homes in Sierra Madre and also the history of homeowners sometimes doing work without permits, staff assumes that a property sale inspection program would be a very active program and would demand a lot of attention from staff. A dedicated inspector, in addition to our existing current building inspector, may be needed to manage and implement such program. To recover the costs, an inspection fee would have to be established for inspections and to cover the administrative work involved in processing the application and certificate. The owner would need to address violations within a specified time frame. It's often 6 months. The owner would also pay for and obtain all necessary permits associated with correcting the violations. Follow-up inspection would occur to confirm that the work has been done, and at which time the compliance certificate can be issued, and then it would then allow the owner to move forward with the sale, lease, or rent of the property. Typically, escrow companies know whether a city has an inspection program, and they will require that as part of the escrow process. And then they will check to make sure that it's being done. It's also something that can be negotiated between buyer and seller as far as who is going to be doing some of this work. According to Zillow, just to give you an idea, there are currently approximately 37 homes for sale in Sierra Madre, and since January there have been about 100 homes sold in Sierra Madre. If a property sale inspection program is established, the work to implement a program would be a significant impact on the Planning and Community Preservation Department current workload, and it would be important to fully recover staff costs to maintain the department's budget at current levels and to not increase the department's reliance on general fund budget subsidy. In terms of financial review, there are no financial impacts associated with this staff report. However, should the City Council wish to establish a property sales inspection program, staff recommends doing an analysis for full cost recovery with the addition of a dedicated housing or building inspector to facilitate the program and also to set the application fee accordingly. The cost of the application, corrections, installation, and any permits would be fully borne by the property owner. Tonight, the council has some alternatives. It can direct staff to develop a property sale inspection program to include an application fee. It can also direct staff not to pursue the development of such a program at this time And you can also continue this item and request additional information. At this time, staff seeks your consideration of whether to develop standards for a property inspection program. This concludes my report, and I will answer any questions. I'll be happy to answer questions you have.
Thank you, Director. Any questions?
Are you familiar with, we have the code from San Marino and Pasadena here. Are you familiar with San Marino's? I mean, other
Just
than-
from reading the code.
Okay, because, let's see, on, I don't know which page this is. It's, I think, page 10 total, but it's at the bottom of the page. Paragraph 24.02.05, inspectors. Says the city shall make available a list of persons authorized to conduct the compliance inspection. I'm reading that to suggest that the city does not, San Marino does not do their own inspections.
That's what I'm understanding as well from that. They just make available a list that a property owner can then choose from.
Right, okay, so then, just the next paragraph, .06, the city planning and building director shall determine if any of the items identified are violations of the code, and then that director then tells the people, these are the ones you have to fix.
Correct.
Right.
So if we went to a system like that, would that minimize the impact on your staff?
It could minimize the impact, yes. Of course, our own inspector would still need to review the report in order to determine which one of those items need to be addressed.
Yeah, that's true, but as
And
time.
then the inspections of the work being done, for example, after the fact.
So, well, okay, so San Marino, you think they do their own final inspection?
I'm sure they do.
So, a contractor does the initial,
Mhm.
then they do the final, okay. Is it possible that we could have Wildan perhaps roll this into their contract to do it as a percentage of a fee, like they do our building inspections?
We could explore that option with them.
Yeah, what I'm trying to get at, because it bothers me that we'd have to add staff, and then, like, right now, things are going gangbusters, but then we could go into another housing recession here, then have a staff member that maybe is only needed like 30-40% of the time. So if we could do it something like with Wildan, then maybe we can.
Contracted.
Yeah, okay.
If I may also, just keep in mind that some of this also requires planning because it's part of zoning also. So
Yeah.
it would involve also time from planning staff to actually identify some of these issues that could come out of the inspection and also work with the property owner to rectify those issues if possible.
Yeah.
So there would still be some staff time
I
at our
see.
end that
Yeah.
would be an increase to existing staff.
Okay, all right, we can discuss this.
I do have a question, whether it's for Interim Director Cardoza or for the City Manager. Is time-wise, do you have an idea, just to develop a property sale inspection program, what you might be looking at time-wise? Labor?
Drafting the ordinance, and we would get direction from the council on how far you'd want it to go. These two ordinances are good examples. One is much more thorough of an inspection than the other. So it would be the time to draft the ordinance, which is a few hours, and getting it back on the agenda again. And first reading, second reading, and it would be law. So it's not a significant amount of time. The time will come in the implementation of the program itself.
Okay, thank you.
So if I'm reading this correctly, the three-year goal was to make Sierra Madre an environmental sustainable community, especially regarding water. And the only one that I can find in our inspections would be the installation of the low-flow appliance, toilet, shower, faucets, smart irrigation, and rain sensor sprinklers. So none of the other ones really deal with the sustainable community part, correct? So this is all in addition?
That is
Okay.
correct. That is the only one.
I just want to make sure I was reading that correctly. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Relatively new in the council, but we do have a variety of services where we are not in full cost recovery. Is that not true?
That's correct.
So
Most
we're
of our
talking about
services.
full cost recovery here. Why?
To not increase the general fund subsidy to the Development Services Fund because of the current financial situation we're in.
Okay. Thought so. I just wanted clarification.
And my only question is, have we had any complaints from new, sellers or buyers or anyone since you've been with the city and the city manager? Same question. Have we ever had any complaints with folks coming in after they've purchased or sold and said, gosh, I really wish you guys were inspecting and doing a checklist because I felt like I was taken advantage of, or whatever the case may be?
Not that I recall. Unpermitted work on a property must be disclosed through escrow. It is actually a responsibility of the seller to do so. It is assumed that they will do their homework. In Sierra Madre, potential buyers, we do notice they do tend to do their homework. We don't run across too many people who seem to have that experience of not knowing. Sometimes what we do see, are advertisements for properties that are for sale, saying things like, additional room can be used as another unit or rented or things like that. And potential buyers, typically, we get a lot of calls asking whether that is actually the case. Sometimes we don't. But again, it is something that is required by sellers to disclose during that process. So we don't get complaints very often that I am aware of at our department.
Me either.
Okay. Thank you very much. We can open this up for public comment, and just one brief note. This item was initiated by our planning commissioner, Bob Spears, at our strategic plan retreat, and I will give you the first shot as a member of the public because this was your idea, so have at it.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of council, city staff. I'll cut short the remarks I was going to make, but I believe this home inspection program will address a number of issues, specifically the water issue first. We have a lot of older homes. A lot of people can afford not to conserve. I get up early and run in the morning. After we had the rain on Halloween, we would all have hoped that there would be no one watering their lawns the next day. I can tell you that there are a lot of people both watering their lawns and the street. So we have we have certain people in the community that can afford not to worry about conservation. And I think what one of your challenges is that you have a diminished capacity to supply water. We've gone to MWD. We're now known as the city with yellow water that doesn't flush our toilets. And we'd like to get back to a position where we can service the demand for the housing stock in Sierra Madre. This is a way in which we can assure that all the houses in town are doing their best, whether people are consciously conserving or not, to use water minimally. I believe that you've heard tonight from Bruce Inman that there is a diminished demand for water, but I think that at some point in time you're going to get conservation fatigue. That people are going to be tired of not flushing their toilet. People are going to be tired of the work they're doing, and that the use of water, remember, in Sierra Madre went up drastically in a matter of 3 or 4 years, and without an increase in population or construction. So at some point in time, we have to rein in the natural need for water by every house. As to the safety inspections, the city of Los Angeles has asked every house to put in an earthquake valve on their gas supply. I think that if those of you that don't live in town during the day and we have an earthquake like we had in '91 when we had 44 firemen that could go out and shut off gas valves around the town, we only have 6 firemen now. And I think you would like to know that your neighbor's house did not catch on fire and burn yours down. So I think we would like to minimize that impact. And I think we also have other safety issues in town. Recently we had a house rewire their electricity from Edison to run a pot production process, and in the process there was a fire, and the fire threatened other houses in the community. So I think that we can, the problems in Sierra Madre and the housing stock are not happening in City Hall. We need to get out and look at them, and we need to be proactive in terms of our management in these issues, and I believe this is an opportunity to do that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Charlie Kissinger, 677 Brookside Lane. Well, I think me and everybody in the canyon might as well come down and give our keys to our houses to you right now because it's not going to happen. I don't mind the water thing. All the insurance that I know have made me put in earthquake valves on all my houses over the course of the years. As far as, back to the canyon again, I don't know how you're going to make things up to code. We have the real estate inspection when you buy a house. The buyer and seller choose what they can do and what they can't do. It just seems to me like if you're going to do this, do it for what it was originally intended, for the water and maybe some safety. But as far as that list, I got the earthquake valve. That's it. The other 10, I'm done. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Charlie.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, staff. My name is Mike Paris. I'm a longtime resident of Sierra Madre. I humbly submit to you, as a member of the top 2% in realtors nationwide, working for the largest real estate company in the world, servicing probably the most amount of home sales in Sierra Madre from my brokerage, which is the largest brokerage in the world. I'm very familiar with what's come up here. I'm going to separate a couple of things. It's my understanding, after working with Steve Pock for years and years and years on issues at homes, working with the city, solving problems on sellers' issues with non-permits, and on and on and on, that I think we can reasonably separate the water low-flow fixtures, upgrading these things, and possibly the gas shutoff valve, away from full inspections like we see going on in Pasadena and San Marino. It's my understanding, unless something has changed in the recent past, that we have no permit after the fact here in Sierra Madre. Pasadena has a system to where they come in, we have an unpermitted situation there. If they investigate and it appears to be safe and sound, they're just looking for their permit money. And they will say, we're going to want you to take a permit out. This was done. It looks okay. Yes, it wasn't permitted to be done, but it looks safe. We just want our $80 or whatever, come down, buy this permit. Or they'll say, ground those electrical outlets in that location, and we'll sign off on it. City of San Marino had a listing recently where there was an unpermitted bathroom built into a very large closet about 40 years ago. And they had the seller contacted the inspector, came in, took a look at this, saw that it wasn't on permit, checked it all out, looked very safe. They just grandfathered it in. Now, if there's no permit after the fact here in Sierra Madre like there is in Pasadena, then there's really no system set up to be able to grandfather things in upon inspection that are safe. I think it's a huge interference, unnecessary, for the city to get involved when 99% of all the home buyers have a professional home inspection. Everything is disclosed to them. They are invited to come to the city to review permits. They know what they're buying. For example, many people will buy homes that unpermitted things were done years and years ago, maybe 2 or 3 home sellers back, but it's been found to be safe through the home inspections over the years. So now the city comes in and says, you got to tear this out. Well, we bought this house with this 3-bedroom, 3 baths, but that's unpermitted. You got to get rid of it. That's not going to fly. You really need to focus on the important things here, which is our water conservation, low flow fixtures. That should be considered. So we can do our best, upgrade the sprinkler heads or the sprinkler controllers for people who don't do them manually, and the gas shut-off valve. These things are reasonable to explore. But to have, I moved here to get away from Big Brother, to get away from the craziness of the oversight of government in my face. And the last 5 or 6 years, I've been feeling more and more from this city interfering in my life. We're adults here. We know there's a water problem. We know we can work on it. Everybody's willing to pitch in. We are not children. And I'm just at the end of my rope with wanting to pull out of here because the interference. When they come over, the guy's tearing up my water meter, or what are you putting in there? I'm putting this radio control thing. It'll eventually go to be able to tell whenever you're turning your water on and off for any reason and how much you're using at any time. At some point in the future, it'll be that smart. It's like, and I looked at the guy from the water company and I said, this is really Big Brother oversight over everything we do. And he said, basically he said, this sucks. Your own water company guy wasn't happy with what he had to do because he knew it was too much interference. Yes, driving by, maybe saving some money on your on the bill, getting the read, but the future for this is to completely control us in every way, and I think it's going in the wrong direction. Conserving water with fixtures is reasonable. Going to do what Pasadena has done with having the inspectors come in, and even they're pretty lenient. So if you're going to go down this road, we need permit after the fact. We need to come in, and if something's safe and it's not permitted, issue the permit. Don't make it a big problem for the citizens here. This is a funky town, and there's a lot of things here that are irregular, and that's the beauty of this town. So please, try to consider the citizens here. The realtors protect the buyers from buying something. It's our fiduciary duty.
I'm going to ask you to wrap up here. I'm not to cut you off.
I'm finished. I think I've stated my point. I got a lot of butterflies, so I'm a little bit scattered right now. But this is a major issue of interference that's unnecessary. There are professional realtors to protect the public, that the houses will be safe when they move in. That's our job. Thank you so much for hearing me out.
Any other public comments? I know,
I understand the butterfly thing. Kim Kelly, 565 Woodland. I'm a member of the Green Team, the Green Advisory Committee, and or whatever we are now, ENERC. And when this went through our eyes, and when they asked for our opinion on this, they were looking for some water conservation tactics that we could come up with. And one of the things was that was suggested on the list and was rated highly by us was the inspection of the houses. In making sure that they had low flow fixtures, making sure that their watering systems were smart watering systems and weren't wasting water, and making sure that there was no leaks in the home. I was under the impression when I thought this was a good idea that this would be handled by the engineering report that was done by the house, and maybe a form from the city that would just be given to them to say, sign off on, yes, there's no leaks, or there's leaks here and they're being taken care of, and then letting the buyers and sellers work out who's going to cover what costs. I mean, all those things are very minimal cost things, fixing a leak in a pipe, replacing some water, replacing some fixtures, whatever. I mean, they're all, maybe several $100 at the most, and that's what I was seeing. And I don't know how in the heck it got to this, what I'm hearing tonight is just like insanity. So I hope that you consider this for what it was meant to be, and not do this full extent of what I'm hearing tonight, because it's kind of ridiculous. It's going to put a terrible burden on buyers and sellers. It's going to clog up any kind of deals that are going on, and draw things out longer than it already takes to get things done as far as real estate actions go. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim.
Yeah, Barbara Lee Klein. I usually agree with Bob, but with this, only as far as safety is concerned and the water. The rest of it, I'd say no, leave it to new city planners planning new cities. We really have so much going on that we really need to address and take care of. This is not one of them, not now, not at this time. I myself went down to Frontier Hardware and purchased a gas valve shut-off and a water shut-off. I belong to CERT. There's many of us that also belong to CERT, along with the 6 firefighters that might be here in case of an emergency. First thing I would ask, legally, I would say, how many other lists of standards does a city have? Oh, this is the first case basis at your... No. Guess what? I've got a nice lawsuit coming in. We don't need this. It reminds me of the old shell game that was played, and I'm going to get some people angry, I don't care, with Carter 1. When Bart Doyle and the rest of them that were on the council went ahead and said, sure, Maranatha, you can build up there. Funny, they didn't check the general plan, which said, no, schools not allowed in that area. Simple checking of the general plan. The one we're still using, the general plan of 1996. Would have saved a lot of people, a lot of heartache, a lot of grief, a lot of lawsuits. We need to address the general plan. We need to tighten up the codes that we have. We don't need to step in, I think, where sellers and buyers and real estate agents are doing a good job. Not now, not at this time.
Thank you.
Hi, it's Angeline Moore from Bella Vista. I'm going to take you back a few years, and this is going to sound really off topic, just briefly. When in the then draft Hillside Management Zone, a number of years ago when it was a draft, there was at one point some language in there that referred to the natural topography of a parcel. The reason it was in there was for the purposes of grading. They wanted the amount of grading that can be done to be related to the natural shape of that parcel rather than if some grading had been done previously and it had been flattened out, they didn't want that to enable more grading. Well, that language came out of the HMZ, and the reason we were told it came out was that at some point in the past, the city's property records were held at LA County. And during that period, the records are notoriously incomplete. And so there would be no way to determine from permit records whether previous grading had occurred on a property. Let me bring you a little closer to the present. We bought our house in 1996. The sellers gave us a stack of stuff pertaining to the house, mostly appliance manuals and stuff like that. But it also had a small stack of permit and inspection tags from the city, and they told this story. The previous owners had started work on what amounted to a retaining wall in the yard. They received a stop work order and were directed to obtain permits. They did obtain permits, they completed the work, it was signed off. Some years later, I was down here, I don't even remember why, in the office having a conversation. Had some question, and whoever I was talking to behind the desk said, let's pull your file, let's see what's in it. And I said, oh, you're going to see all that business about the unpermitted retaining wall that the prior owners did. And the answer was, no, there's nothing in here about a retaining wall. The only thing in here is a permit that you pulled that you never closed out. Well, I had closed it out. It had been inspected. Luckily, I saved the tag. I was able to bring it in, and of course, they corrected the records. So you see where I'm going, I think. And I'm not accusing anyone of shredding documents in there. The physical record keeping is what it is, and ours is incomplete. And as such, I can't support an inspection program that goes hunting for unpermitted work when we don't have appropriate records to determine what was permitted. Further on this, the reason you're considering this is because you rated it a number 2 priority for water conservation. I don't know why this is being fast-tracked ahead of things that you rated number 1 priority that would have higher water conservation amounts, namely a lawn removal incentive. That was rated number 1. Removing lawns is a lot of water. Anyone who has a lawn knows that's a lot of water. That's more water than a low-flow toilet. So I don't know why we're getting this ahead of other items that would have bigger water conservation values. And now's the time to strike on that. It's been a long, hot summer. Lawns are brown. I hear a lot of people saying, we're going to do something, maybe take out the back, but maybe we can leave the front. This is the moment to grab those people who are having these thoughts. Well, it looks terrible. If we start getting a little rain here over the winter, it will do nothing to alleviate the drought, but it will green up the lawns, and you're going to lose that opportunity. So in terms of water conservation, I think this is would be a meager savings, and I would favor the option in your staff report to not pursue this. But if I've failed to persuade you on that, I hope you'll at least take to heart the fact that hunting for unpermitted work is not workable here due to the state of our records. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, City Council. My name is Andrew Cooper. I am the CEO of the Arcadia Association of Realtors. And 2 days ago, we submitted an electronic email to the council with a letter offering a few items. Did everyone receive it? If you did not, I do have copies that I could furnish the council later on if need be. In the letter, we explained that most of the issues that are brought up in this proposed plan are already addressed in the inspection, normal and customary inspection process, as was discussed earlier by a few people speaking here at the podium. We also offered to act as a partner with the city to help explore positive alternatives rather than implement this program. And we stand behind that. Just because we're from the Arcadia Association of Realtors doesn't mean we are exclusive to the city of Arcadia. Our jurisdiction is the foothills here, from Sierra Madre all the way out to Bradbury. So we're not just exclusive to Arcadia. I'd like to make that that point. We'd like to encourage the council to opt for item number 2 in your packet, which is to not go forward with this program. However, if the council is not prepared to make a vote yet, perhaps opt for number 3. Put this off, explore more options, and come to us. Let us be a partner and help explore other options for you. Even though we're a local association, we are members of the State Association of Realtors and the National Association of Realtors, and we have a vast array of resources to help the city or the council make any decisions that would benefit the community. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much.
I'm Barry Gold, live at 441 Ramona Avenue. Good evening, Mayor Harabedian and council members. I believe that the proposed property inspection program is an attempt to extract more money from the citizens of Sierra Madre under the guise of public safety, to create a new bureaucracy and impose new fees on everyone who sells their home is punitive, considering that homes are already being checked for working smoke detectors, hot water heater, earthquake straps, gas meter seismic shutoffs, and toilets with low flow devices before they can be sold. Every seller must provide to every buyer a termite inspection report and make all necessary repairs. Every real estate agent must make a visual inspection of every home and disclose every defect they discover. Every seller must disclose to every buyer any and all defects, including non-permitted uses, and it is standard procedure for buyers to pay for a professional home inspection that they must approve before the sale can be completed. Escrow cannot close until all of these things and others, too many for me to list in just 3 minutes, have been done. The staff points out in their report that many of our homes are old and that years ago codes were not enforced as diligently as they are today. Staff should have also pointed out that years ago the records were not kept as diligently as they are today. Am I to be penalized because of a prior owner of the house I live in did something 70 years ago before I was even born? Or because the city's records back in the 1920s or 30s were not kept up to date? You already inspect every new home. You already inspect every home that is being remodeled. This program will turn into a witch hunt to look for violations so that the city can get thousands of dollars in development fees for reviewing the architectural plans that will be required. If there was a real public safety issue here, and not just an attempt to increase revenues, The staff would have cited in the report the number of deaths and serious injuries that could have been prevented over the years had such a program been in effect. The fact that other cities have an inspection program counts for nothing. Other cities crave McMansions. This is Sierra Madre. We're different. We value our way of life. We don't need the city unnecessarily invading our homes. And I truly believe that this program is unnecessary. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, we'll bring it back to the council.
I think what we have here are two separate items. I think we have a property sale inspection program, and then we also are trying to address the 3-year goal of make Sierra Madre an environmental sustainable community, especially regarding water. I don't think the two of them mix with this. I do commend Commissioner Spears for the work that was put into this, and perhaps look at this at a later time when we would have staff that could possibly sustain this type of program. I, for one, know that every home, especially the older homes, have a lot of different cellars, and I don't want to penalize people for not having permits that someone didn't put in 3 years, 3 times owners ago. I would like to look at the installation of the water, the toilets and the faucets and those kind of things. I'm not sure if we can do that, making the sellers install them now. I just went through a remodel, and I don't care what anybody says, it's not easy, and I can just see us putting in these toilets, and then they having to do the floors, and then they have to do the walls, and it's a lot of work. But maybe for our new homes, then we insist all this be in the new homes, as well as, really, I kind of didn't even think about this automatic earthquake gas shutoff valve. We really need to make this important, somehow get the word out about that and where we can find them, because that is important. But I know that we have carbon monoxide, I can't even say it, detectors now that we have to have in our homes, and the smoke detectors. And it really is true that, our building inspectors and the building programs, when we sell our home, do a pretty good job, and it's between the builder and the seller anyway. I know when we bought our home, there's something wrong with the balcony, and, they should have had it fixed. We just negotiated a price and had it fixed later. So I would not be in favor of doing something like this right now, but would like to capture some of the water safety, the water in it if we could.
Thank you.
Councilmember Delmar, are you saying that you'd be in support of the like number 8 and, number 8, it's listed here on page 2 of 3?
Yeah, for our new homes, and I'd have to understand more about it if we were insisting that they be in, the seller be responsible for them when they were selling their home, because it's not as simple as just, putting in for the toilets. If we were asking for the, perhaps doing this in a remodel, or does every seller have to have these things in their home before they can sell it and have to be signed off? I don't think we could do that, but we could certainly have it in a new home or a remodel.
What if we just, again, I'm understanding the concern about the inspection. I have a concern about the inspection just from a management point of view, and also hearing what the residents have to say. But what if we just throw something out there, just state that these things must be done, and the seller or the buyer would have to certify that it has been done before the certificate of occupancy was issued without an inspection. So if they want to lie, they can lie, I suppose, but we would ask them to certify.
Well, we don't want to encourage lying.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying, rather than go through the inspection, just state that it is a requirement for a certificate of occupancy that you do these things, and sign here stating that you've done it. Is that something that?
Well, I mean, if the point of this, you have to remember that the goal is to save water.
Oh, no, I'm not talking about the other stuff.
Yeah.
And I just want to point out, too, that this is not the city manager or staff suggesting that we do this. Staff is just looking for suggestions back, and this is just a range of things that we could possibly do. So I just want to thank her for giving us the option, but I didn't want the public to think for a minute that this was somebody making the suggestion that we do all these things 1 through 6. That's not the case. So I'll just say where I'm standing right now. I don't want to do all this other stuff. I want to focus on the water. And I think the automatic gas shutoff, I think, is an important thing for the reasons that Mr. Spears says, is that we just don't have enough people around to go shutting gas off in the case of an emergency. And I'd like to figure out a way to make this happen sooner, but a good place to start is when a house is sold. So I think what I'd like to do is see if there's a possibility that we can do number 8. I'm not sure that we need to do number 9. Smoke detectors, that's already required, isn't it? Okay. Legible numbers on the exterior of the house, I mean, that's a good thing for the fire department or the paramedic if they ever have to come to your house. I mean, that's a very small thing, and again, I think that can be done with just certification. And automatic shutoff, and again, just require certification and not an inspection program. And just wondering if that's a possible way to get some of these things done without being a big brother to the citizens and incurring all this extra staff time for us.
We can definitely draft an ordinance that there's just a form that when a house changes hands, they check off and, signing under perjury that these things have been done. I mean, it could be that simple. And we're not inspecting and we're not making sure it was done. But that's definitely, that definitely can be done.
I just wanted to commend Commissioner Spears. I think it was within the first week we were sworn in. We were jumped into a strategic planning session, and he came, and everything was very new. And it was very forward-thinking, I think, at the time, especially because we hadn't been necessarily in the state of drought that we are. We hadn't passed some of these, the water moratorium, et cetera. So I applaud you, Mr. Spears, for that forward-thinking. At the same time, there's a lot of things I agree with my fellow council people here. I don't like the idea of this being a punitive measure. I think we talked about different ways we can provide incentives, and I like looking at it from a more positive way. Also, as we're looking at the general plan and we're looking at the water moratorium and the ordinances, I think a lot of this can be weaved in there, and we can address it in a different way. And then, when it comes down to finances, I just don't think it's cost effective either, and I just don't like putting the burden on the seller. So if there is a way that we can incorporate some of these things in a different manner, and not maybe in a sale inspection program, I definitely would be open to that, but at this time I would be in favor of not even putting time into developing an inspection program and exploring it further.
Mr. Goss?
I think it's a solution in search of a problem. I don't think that the small number of homes that we could check, if we're doing 100 turnover this year, 5 years out, that's a high 500 homes. I think it's roughly 10% of our housing stock in the area. I don't think that's going to make much of a difference if you're talking about low-flow shower heads, possibly, or some of these other issues, possibly with the irrigation controller. But we're going to be dealing with that very shortly when we talk about water conservation issues. I think that Commissioner Spears, he's got fire department background. I mean, he knows that this issue of having an automatic shutoff in emergencies is critical. And I think that there are probably dangerous situations in homes all around the city where you have unpermitted activities. But it just seems to me like a reach that we're going to go out and right all those wrongs. We don't have the staff, we don't have the budget, and I think what you're hearing from the people is they just don't want to tolerate that. It's a very intrusive type of activity, and I hear that, and I certainly feel that way as well. I think I would rather deal with the low-flow shower head, the water conservation, toilet, smart irrigation systems separately in another venue, or maybe have staff go back and maybe cook something up differently. I don't know if I really want to go through with any kind of inspection program even on those at this time.
And having just been through this process, I think I can speak to to the problem if there were one. And, you know, I just don't really think that this is necessary at this time. I do think that the process of buying and selling a home is a very stressful one. It's a very expensive one. And to add more of a burden, I think, is just not really necessary. And not only adding more of a burden, I do think that we really need to think about whether we want our city staff to insert themselves into this process. And I don't necessarily think that I would be in favor of that. When I bought my house, I hired a realtor who helped me find an inspector. We inspected the house. We made sure that everything was good enough for me to buy. I mean, there were some things that obviously weren't perfect, but I didn't have to do certain things after I bought the house. But immediately what I did was put in low-flow toilets and do some of the things that we're talking about here. And I do kind of have faith that people are going to do these types of things, whether or not we give them a sheet of paper or whether we require them to do it anyway. To the Mayor Pro Tem's point, my only concern about even giving them a piece of paper to sign under perjury, I really think that we need to consider, when someone's buying a home, they're strapped. I mean, you're barely getting the loan. And at least that's what I've heard. And if someone came to me and said, you need to sign under penalty of perjury, that right after you move in, you're going to spend another, toilets aren't cheap, shower in faucets are a little bit cheaper, but I mean, if someone came to me and said, are you going to be able to, in the next month, put in a smart irrigation sprinkler control system, I probably would have committed perjury. I probably would have said, yep, absolutely. And, knowing that they wouldn't come back and inspect, I don't think, I wouldn't have the money. So, I too can, commend Commissioner Spears. I think that this is the old saying that, this is an axe when maybe a scalpel can do the trick. To the extent we're looking to encourage more water conservation, I think that there's better ways to do it, and I don't think this is the way. I do think that we should explore through incentives and things like that too, and we are going to be talking about that in one of the next item, incentive programs to encourage people to put in smart irrigation systems. And I think the automatic earthquake shutoff valve for the gas, I mean, that's a no-brainer. And if your inspector, if the inspectors and the realtors aren't telling buyers and sellers to do that these days, then they shouldn't be used. And the market should adjust for that. And these people shouldn't be getting business, because that was one of the first things we talked about, when I was buying homes. So all that is to say is that I'm not in support of this. I think that there are some very, good ideas that we can try to incorporate in other aspects, maybe down the road, and maybe in the next 5 minutes, actually. So, yeah, that's where I am. I don't think we need a motion here. But Commissioner Spears, thank you. Hopefully you don't resign from the commission over this, but appreciate it.
And thank you to Leticia for putting this together and doing your homework. I appreciate that.
We'll move on to item number 4. Recommendation for the allocation of San Gabriel Valley Municipal Water District Water Conservation Grant.
Director Inman is taking number 4 and number 5, our last 2 items this evening for this agenda. Then we go to our next agenda.
All right, as you know, the San Gabriel Valley Municipal Water District has agreed to provide a grant to the city of Sierra Madre in the amount of $70,000. The district has asked the city to provide a city council approved list of priorities for the expenditure of these funds. In the staff report, we've provided a list of projects and programs on page 2 and estimated costs for those programs. Each of these as listed, has been approved in concept by the district as things that they would consider as appropriate. Unfortunately, this list totals about $145,000, well over twice the amount of the grant. So we need to weed through this list and develop our priorities. 4 of the items listed there are at $1,000 or less, and staff would propose to add a budget line item in the upcoming budget for water conservation activities that these items could be included in, such as signage, banners, xeriscape classes, and so on. Another item that's we've looked at in a little further depth is the turf replacement program. That is something that the district itself is not undertaking, and District President Tom Love has explained on a couple of occasions their reasons for not doing so, specifically that it's simply not a cost-effective means to reduce water use. Yes, you can reduce water use significantly that way, but it's very expensive to do so. I did a little bit of calculation on this, and it's estimated that it requires 10,000 square feet of turf removal to save 1 acre-foot of water per year. So even if we went forward with a modest 50 cents per square foot rebate, that would require us to spend $5,000 to save an acre-foot of water. That is a popular program, but and it's well received by Sierra Madre customers, but it is labor intensive to monitor this following the work being done, and it's not particularly cost effective at a cost of $5,000 an acre foot. One of the other items that we've looked at is a leak detection system for our water distribution system. We've all heard comments that we have a leaky water system. Those comments have come largely from comments that I myself have made about leaks in our system. Using an industry standard of 5% system leakage, because we don't have an accurate way of measuring our own system leakage, but using a 5% industry standard, the proposed leak detection system could save as much as 125 acre-feet a year when combined with spot repairs to the water system. The cost of this leak detection system, which we could set up and move from place to place in the city, would be approximately $53,000, and that would amount to a cost of $424 per acre-foot saved for a system to identify leakage. The number one item the staff is recommending, however, is to invest a significant portion of these grant funds in AMI water metering or advanced metering infrastructure. This is a topic that has been discussed by previous city councils, and it's seen as a great tool to assist water customers in monitoring their own water use in real time, to avoid the current lag time between water consumption and water billing. This, what we're proposing is that approximately $60,000 of this grant could be used for purchasing the base system, the data collection portion of the system that would be used in conjunction with those radio read meters that have already been installed as a pilot program in locations around town. That would allow us to begin the long-awaited and previously discussed AMI system, and we could in fact then propose to the community that under a system very similar to our sidewalk repair partnership program, our customers could get on board with doing this if they're in a hurry to do so by investing approximately $130, or they could simply wait until a later date when the funding becomes available for the city to undertake the cost of equipping everyone with the radio sending units. And finally, this $60,000 estimate for the base station was based on the previous staff report that we provided to the City Council. We are currently reviewing options for a cloud-based AMI system that could reduce this cost substantially.
Wow.
And if we could use the cloud-based system, then we could take a portion of these funds and use them for other projects that are on this list, or we could use those funds for additional radio sending units to make the program available for more customers, or to subsidize the cost for customers. Another recommended use of these funds is for the Civic Center landscaping project. That was publicized initially as being funded in the amount of $10,000 by the Water District. Unfortunately, that amount of funding did not include some encumbrances that were not shown at the time we looked at that, and staff is proposing that we backfill approximately $2,000 from the current grant offering to bring that amount of funding for the project back to $10,000 as publicized. And finally, staff is proposing that we use approximately $8,000 of this grant to cover unbudgeted overtime costs, which would be used to provide water audits for Sierra Madre water customers who have asked or who would ask for staff to come out and do water audits. We have 2 certified water conservation specialists on our water department staff that could go out and visit subject properties and advise property owners and water customers how best to save water on their properties. They can provide suggestions, recommendations for programs, projects that water customers may not have considered in the past. This could be a significant way for our individual water customers to save money, and it's not something that we would advise proposing or would advise that we provide under our current structure, because we feel that providing these water audits in the evenings and on weekends when our customers could actually participate in the program would be a better use of our staff time and probably be more acceptable and more appropriate for our customers. So in summary, staff is proposing that the $70,000 be prioritized in $60,000 for AMI, $2,000 for the Civic Center landscaping project, and $8,000 for residential water audits. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions?
I have a quick question.
Sure.
The AMI system, you gave us a figure for the leak detection system in terms of the water savings. What was the water savings for the AMI system? Do we have some kind of a estimate for that?
Yeah, we don't really have an estimate on that. We're looking at that more as a service to our customers rather than a specific quantifiable amount of water savings. We believe that if our customers are more aware of how they're using their water, they'll be better able to conserve.
Well, not to be contentious, we heard from one customer tonight that we may not have as many people you think who want these. I don't know. Do we know what our customer base, what their opinion is of this? Do they want this? I'd hate to spend a lot of money on something they don't want.
I can tell you that it is a regular request at the front counter. It's a regular complaint that people don't know their water usage until 30 days after they've used the water.
Mm-hmm.
That's been consistent for a while.
It's been consistent. Ever since we went to the mandatory conservation, it's been consistent. I would say probably, for every 10 customers who like it, there is probably one who doesn't. But generally speaking, it's a frequent request. It still is to this day.
I think the concern, to further elaborate on your question, I think one of the concerns that you hear is a big brother kind of concern that we're going to be watching when people turn on their sprinklers and turn on their showers. As you know, we're pretty short-handed on staff. We don't have anybody that's going to be sitting around watching the system to see when people are turning their water on and off. That's not what this is for. This is intended to provide a service to our customers. And one other service that it would provide is when we do see a high usage in the system, we can notify our customers of water leaks before these things run up a huge water bill for them. These systems can be set up to alarm when somebody is using water that's way out of proportion to their normal usage, and that can be a real savings for our customers. But again, we're not going to be sitting around watching a dial to see if somebody's turning on their sprinklers or taking showers at the wrong time.
I have a follow-up question on Councilmember Goss's question. How many accounts would we be able to place on this AMI if you had, if we were to spend this $56,000 or $60,000?
We've got about 350 radio reads already in place that we are using, that we're using a basically a drive-by system, or a touch reading system on, and all we would need to do is set this up and we would automatically immediately have 350 which would also include all of the city's account. These are essentially in the canyon where we've had difficulty with meter reading in the past, where we have hidden meters and so on. These have been installed on Sierra Madre Boulevard and on North Mountain Trail as part of the water main replacements, and they've been installed on the city's accounts.
So that's only about 10% of our meters then?
Correct.
See, that's my concern, is that, this is a good thing to do. I'm in favor of getting to this AMI, but I'm just not seeing how that's going to save a lot of water right now compared to maybe the leak detection. The other assumption that you have on the leak detection is that we've got 5% system leakage. I mean, Arcadia, even in their water report, they estimate about 10%. And maybe theirs is worse than ours, I don't know. But, ours is old as it is. I'm just wondering if it maybe is a little bit more. If 5% is an industry standard, I'm thinking we might be a little above that. So that would drive the cost down a little bit. So I don't know. I'm just reluctant to, I'll wait till discuss it, but that's my question.
I have a question for Director Inman. Do you have a range, ballpark figure as to how much the cloud-based system for the AMI costs?
At this point, no. We've looked at a number of things, and it's my understanding that, although I haven't seen the numbers, that there's a wide range in costs, and that we're just not at a point where we are ready to bring this back to the council yet.
Couldn't throw out like half or anything? Okay.
I would guess that it's less than half of what this
Hmm.
is, but again, I have no firm numbers to quote you.
Thanks.
Okay, so to follow up on that, now how do you get the reports? So you people go around with the little handheld to the
Correct.
radio ones, and then it goes from the
That's correct.
the meter to the handheld,
That's correct.
and then that's generated. So what you're looking for then is to do it so that it will go from the radio meter to someplace
Essentially,
else.
what this would be, what AMI...
So someone doesn't have to go around with the hand thing.
What AMI consists of is a form of base station and meters that transmit data. Edison already uses these. The gas company already uses these. And what this allows the city to do is monitor in real time. We can then track when there's leaks, when we see a spike in water use. We can notify customers in that way, as I previously discussed. And the resident, the customer, can log on to the city's website, and with their own password, they can look at their account and they can monitor their water use in real time.
So so it's an in-house, so you have to go inside what you're proposing now until we get a cloud base, is that you'll have to go into the person's house and put the,
We would go
sort of the
to-
receiver.
No.
in-
We would go to their meter. This is basically
their
an
meter?
attachment that goes onto their meter
Okay,
that sends data from that point to a central collection point, which in this instance, as proposed here, would be at City Hall.
so you just need one?
Just one of these.
Okay,
Just one central data collector.
and we don't know what that, and that's the 60,000, that's what
That's
you're.
60,000
so you're
that was
looking
quoted to us
60,000
in
for
the
one
past.
base.
For one base, and all we need to cover Sierra Madre with is one base.
Okay.
Thank you, Director. I have a couple questions. One is, I think after reading this report, you come away thinking, how could the leak detection system not be a number one priority item? It's cost effective, it would save a ton of water, it fits within the price, but then we kind of have a conclusory sentence that says, well, we should wait. Can you explain a little bit more why staff thinks we should wait on that? Because you make such a convincing, it's like you lead us to a conclusion and then all of a sudden the conclusion is contrary to what I thought you were going to say. So
Sure.
why should we wait on that? Why not do that now?
Well, the leak detection system is great, and it will enable us to locate leaks. One of the things that I realize that I've left out of this is, once we've located the leaks,
We can't
we've
fix
got to
it.
go fix them, and that number isn't in this.
Interesting.
Because we don't know how many leaks we've
Ignorance is
got.
bliss.
We're basing this off
Still
of an
wanna know.
industry standard, because one of the things that AMI will also give us that isn't shown here is, once we have real-time data on our metered water consumption, we can determine almost exactly what our leakage is. Right now, we can't do that because of the difference between how we meter our production and how the consumption is metered. We can't tie the two together, so we don't know what's leaking between production and consumption. AMI allows you to do that eventually once we get everybody on that system. But to go back to your question, yeah, it's great to be able to locate the leaks, to divide the city up into quadrants and go around and find the leaks. Then you've got to fix them, and there's an additional cost to that.
That's a good point. My other question was, did staff in the district ever discuss rebates for smart irrigation systems, things that we were talking about, for smart sprinkler systems that ensure that there isn't overwatering, which other cities do that. I think Burbank will give a rebate if you put in a smart sprinkler system, and I think that has to be a cost-effective way to, I would think, save water. Why isn't that something we've considered here?
It is, and it's something that the district is actually considering. They've actually spoken about that. I believe they talked about that on the water tour that we took.
It would have been nice if I was there, that's right. So they actually said this is something, in other words, don't do it as a city, we're going to do it as a district.
It's something that they're talking about doing themselves, so rather than doing it in-house, we can rely on them to do that.
Yeah, well, that's good to know.
Another question real quick.
Sure.
The leak detection would also give us data in terms of figuring out pretty clearly where our worst mains are that we should be put on the replacement schedule, correct?
And we've got a pretty good idea of that already because we know where we're going out to the most, where we have our frequent flyer streets that...
So you don't think this would provide you with any surprises?
I don't think it would. What it would do, I think, is help us to pinpoint the leaks. There may be leaks that are hidden at this point that we aren't aware of. For the most part, though, when we get a significant leak, it's going to come to the surface.
No pun intended.
We're out there, we're notified, and we're out there and getting on them. But there may be leaks in the system that we're not aware of that are just basically replenishing the aquifer. And that's the kind of leaks that this would help us to find that we're not locating otherwise.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director Inman. We'll open this up for public comment.
Hi, Angeline Moore, Val Vista. So, you don't know me, but if you did, it would not shock you to learn that as soon as we started getting the first water reductions, I started going out to my meter about twice a week, reading it, taking the numbers down, putting them in the computer, update a little graph, project it out to the end of the billing period to project exactly how many units of water I was using.
Wow.
A couple of months ago, I went out to read the meter, and I had my meter replaced with one of these touch reads. The lid for those, if you haven't seen them, is a solid block of concrete. I found it in a catalog. It weighs 35 pounds, I believe, and it's got a tiny, tiny slot to open it. And I tried with the screwdriver. I couldn't figure out it. It just lifts up a couple inches and it falls back over. I sent an email to Public Works, and they responded immediately. Bruce had Mr. Reynoso came out, super helpful, super pleasant, showed me some tips how he does it, and let me tell you, Jose has the touch. He makes it look easy. I can't do it. I'm not having the most upper body strength in town, but I'm a fit and healthy adult, and I can't read my meter. Have you heard of the Cell Phone Bill Shock Act of 2011? You may have forgotten about it. So before that, it was common practice in the cell phone industry to charge big overages if you went over your number of minutes. And it was nearly impossible to determine what your usage was. And the Cell Phone Bill Shock Act of 2011 said you can't do that. You have to provide easy access to your usage data. That's why you type star data, whatever, and you get your data because of the Bill Shock Act of 2011. What we have right now with people who have these units that you can't reasonably read the meter is bill shock. If you can't get any usage data except every 60 days with a delay of at least 21 days, that's not appropriate usage information to have people have to adhere to limits. And I guess we'll find out in about 12 days whether there may be even fines. So my comments are in relation to automatic meter reading. If you're going to have mandatory limits, if you're going to possibly have fines, you have to provide access to the data. If it's not feasible for ordinary people to read the meter manually, you have to provide some way to read it over the web to read your account. So I would encourage the AMI, because the way we've gone with the touch reads, it's very difficult to impossible for ordinary citizens to read their water meter. Thanks.
Thank you.
Charlie Kissinger, 677 Brookside. I'm exceeding my personal podium time. But this is probably to staff. Those of us who applied for an appeal of our water usage, has anything ever become of that?
We can either answer that now, or we can
answer it at the end.
We can answer it at the end, and then we'll figure out where your appeal in terms of the process, where it is right now.
Okay, so it's still in process?
Yes.
That's would be my, yeah,
Yes.
that
That's
would
all
be
you
my
need to know.
assumption.
Thank
If you
you.
haven't heard back, it's still in process.
Okay, thank you.
Barbara Lee, I'd be interested in seeing what's the rest of the goals on that list. And is this something, $70,000 sounds relatively small when you work with grants. Is this something that we could turn over to the schools and see what ideas the kids might send in? You know, that here comes a new generation. I would go down and list and question how much does it cost to rent a leak detector instead of spending the $53,000. What does it cost when we rent that out? The same with the water system. Again, Frontier Hardware, you get the water turnoff valve and you insert it in that heavy cement block and you can flip it up, but then you do have to use up our body strength to get in to read your meter. But it is possible. My meter, when it's shut off, still clicks. That water's going somewhere. So I'm questioning the accuracy of these radio readout meters that we're thinking of. Also, with those meters, how many do we have still to install in Sierra Madre at what cost if we went down that road? Real quickly, when we were doing some of the researching for different things going into the general fund, one of mine was how many stop signs, how many water hydrants, et cetera, et cetera. I only covered the lower quadrant of Sierra Madre over here, and I found that we don't have a fire hydrant at all. And I should know the name of the street, but right across the street from Sierra Madre swimming pool, an entire street, it's a cul-de-sac, has no fire hydrant. The nearest fire hydrant is across the street on
Monterey
the boulevard.
Monterey Line.
Is that a good use for $70,000? So there's certain things that maybe this money, we can still kind of think, you know, what can we do with this grant that would be something that might help us out just a little bit more here.
Thank you.
Hi, Mike Paris, 465 East Laurel. I just want to remind the council that I personally believe we already have the very best water conservation plan intact, and that is the astronomical price of our water. When our citizens get their water bills over this summer and they really get to see what they're really paying, they're going to start looking at their aerators, putting in low flow aerators. What can we do to conserve more? It's hitting everybody in the pocketbook. It's incredibly expensive water here, and our citizens are becoming more and more aware of it. So, again, we're adults. We pay the bills, we pay the taxes, we pay for the money for our staff members. I want you to seriously consider who you represent. It's very inexpensive to put out another mailer to the public, reminding them of our problems, the cost of the water, teach them how to check their own meters to see if it's moving when they shut off everything so they can look for leaks. These are simple things that are low cost. Please consider them.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, we'll bring it back for discussion.
I just have a quick question, and I don't know, Madam City Manager, if you can answer it, but by when do we have to have the dollars obligated?
As soon as possible. They would like a decision from us as soon as possible. so that we can expend the money as soon as possible, because there's gonna be another round of grants, but if we haven't spent this round of grants, we're not gonna get much in the next round. And so we just met with the Water District a few weeks ago, so it's a pretty urgent item. I would not want the city to miss out on the next round, because we would need time to spend the money.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, on the water meters, it says here the cost to the customer for retrofit of a data transmission unit would be approximately 30. Are you saying that we would charge the customer?
130.
Yeah, 130. We wouldn't be charging the customer for that.
Well, Director Inman, when he mentioned earlier about, we could do a couple of things.
Oh, that's if we had.
That's if
okay.
that, we could do, he mentioned the sidewalk partnership
Yeah.
program. If somebody wanted to meter in a radio readable meter so they can go on their computer and check their usage in real time,
Yeah.
they could pay the 130 and we'd install it right away.
Okay, so again, I just forget, it's been so long since we talked about this, but Director Inman said we have about 350 radio transmitter meters out there.
Installed with the radio installed on them.
How many smart meters do we have?
There's a lot. I think almost all of them just would need the, Director Inman, almost all of them are radio readable. They don't have the radio read
head
on them.
Yeah. How many?
Yeah, about 2/3 of our meters are the smart meters.
Okay.
We still have roughly 1,000, 1,200 that need to be replaced.
Okay, so then if we can get another grant, we might get pretty close to doing the whole system then.
We could we'd make a lot of progress on it, yes.
Well, tell me, how many meters do you replace every year just on a regular, to replace bad meters?
I'd have to look that up for you. I don't want to misquote a number. No, I really can't tell you. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I can get back to you with that number.
All right, well, the reason I'm thinking, because at first this didn't sound very good, but the young lady that spoke had a good point, is that once we install that radio read on there, it's awfully hard for the customer to look, and I really do feel bad about that. Here's somebody trying to, collect data and not able to do it. If we can install this, then she could sit at her computer and do it, not have to go out in the front and try. But, okay, yeah. Okay, well, I understand it a little bit better now. So,
Any comments? Look, I'll go. I think that, so I'm torn here because I do think that, one, the AMI system should be something that the city does. We've been talking about it now since we've been on council. And, whether we do it through the grant or whether we just, as soon as we can, as soon as possible with the water fund, do it, we should. I don't think that there's any debate that that is something that we should put as a top priority. We didn't incorporate it in our water rate study. We went back and forth a lot on that. People were feeling, I think, the shock from the sticker price as it was, and we didn't want to add any more cost. In hindsight, maybe we should have just added it and got it done, because I do think it's something we need to do. I'm struggling here because, to me, I almost see the $70,000 as a way to pass through to the residents and to give them a break. I really want this to not only be smart in terms of saving water and having the best bang for our buck, but I really want it to be almost an educational moment where we're like, hey guys, I know turf replacement isn't the best use of our money, but at least that would make residents feel like, hey, we're getting a break here. The city's helping us here, and AMI reading and leak detection systems just aren't as sexy, and they're not as, I don't think people really feel it in their pocketbook, and they probably don't really think it does much. So all that is to say is that's why I brought up the sprinkler idea, because it is something that's very easy to do. They put in the new sprinkler system. We give them a $75 check or whatever it is. And I think residents feel like this money's being used for not only water conservation, but that they're getting a piece of it. So I do want to balance these, and I think we've done that here. I want to make sure we're balancing the kind of the educational outreach with folks feeling like they're actually receiving the money that is being given to us by the district. but that is also the best bang for our buck. So with that, I mean, I can support the AMI system and what we've proposed here, noting Director Inman's explanation as to why the leak detection system really would cost a lot more money to make it as fruitful as the staff report shows. I mean, the money, it kind of gets us to step one, and we need to get to like step 5, which is, getting the staff and the money to actually fix the pipes. So I'm okay with the first tier as we've proposed here. I'm struggling because I do think that the AMI program is something that we should do anyway. So in using the district's grant funds, I know that money's it's fungible to a certain extent, but I do think it's just, I'm struggling with that. Oh, and on the water audits, I'm sorry, I'm not sure I would invest $8,000 here on that. I would probably put the $8,000, I don't know, I keep going back to turf removal. I keep going back to that idea. I know that it's not the best use of our money, but I think it's a visible way of getting the message out. And maybe we don't do the pre-inspection and then the current inspection while they're replacing their lawn, and then the post-inspection, maybe we have a little bit more faith, but I might think about diverting some money there for turf replacement. So that's where I stand right now.
I'll just comment. I really wish we had the information about the cloud-based system, because, I mean, that's the direction technology is going. I imagine that's what is going to make sense when we're looking at the AMI. The $60,000 is really sticker shock to me, and I, again, understand the importance of the need for it, but I really do like the mayor's idea of using this more as, or some of the dollars for educational purposes. But I am still having difficulty with the leakage detection equipment. It seems as if, to me, again, when I first read this, that, wow, that should be the first thing that we have. Understanding that we don't have the dollars to fix it, but just because we don't have the dollars to fix it, I don't think that also means that we should ignore the fact that we need to know where the leaks are. And, this is definitely a common concern I've heard from residents is, there's leaks and then it bursts. So, and that's why I was wondering where, when we have to obligate these dollars by, because it would be great to find out, the cloud-based system's only going to be $20,000. Maybe we can look at the water distribution and incorporate some of the turf replacement. I am actually having challenges here, so I'd love to hear what everyone else thinks.
I agree with Mayor Herabedian on the issue of turf removal. I think maybe we should do something on that. Mainly as a symbolic, I hear a lot of people ask me, when's the city going to do turf removal? And so I do take the point that it's just not really an efficient way to use our money, but look, that's what the public seems to expect. So, and this is kind of what I feel about the AMI. I don't know. I mean, I've heard a very strong position tonight. I don't know what the public's view is on having their daily water metered so carefully. And I understand Director Inman. I'm sure he's not going to be watching the dials and keeping track of everybody's water usage. But in fact, that data will be there. And I think that makes, we're in the day of NSA and all the rest of it. And people are a little sensitive to those things right now. So I'd like to know more about public interest in that before I could commit to the AMI. And I just don't think you get much of a return right now if you're only talking about 350 homes without spending additional dollars to put more of the transceivers on these meters. I think the leak detection is exactly what we need. I campaigned on that last year. We have leaky water mains. I know where some of them are because I've lived right in front of them. And I think there's probably more leaks out there that we don't know about. And we all know we have to start thinking seriously about what we're going to do with our water infrastructure. And I do believe there are dollars there to work to fix some of those leaks that we find, because we're not talking about general fund money here. We're talking about the water fund money, and that's a different pot of money. And we were not presented with a budget tonight to look at to make an evaluation on just what we can and cannot afford in terms of leak repair. So if we're going to move forward tonight at all, I'd much prefer the expenditure on the leaks and maybe some money towards the turf removal.
I think I'm in agreement with everybody here. The concern I have about the AMI is it seems to me that we're implementing this in little chunks, and I don't see the plan laid out, and maybe you all saw it in the previous city councils, but I just can't put $60,000 for something for 350 radio reads. Not only that, but when we could have something that's cheaper, but we don't know what that is. I would have liked to have at least had some estimates, and I think not having that was what kind of not sold me on that, because I really would have liked to have some idea. We wouldn't have had to had a bid, but there must have been some sort of estimate of what it would have cost to do the cloud base, and then I could be able to be swayed. The leak detection, you know, I think that's important, but I also know what's going to happen. Do we have the budget to fix the leaks? Again, I would have liked to have seen a budget, you know, what our budget costs are for leaks. Is that going to help us? That wasn't included in this report. I do like trying to use this money to give back to the residents, that they actually have something to take away. I like the education program. I actually would like to see the conservation banners and signs a little more up on the priority list. It's not that much money, but up there, because we want to continue the education program. And I would like to see, you know, the turf replacement program in conjunction with the sprinklers system that the San Gabriel Water District is going to put in, because I don't think we need to, you know, get rid of all of our greenery and plants, but we still are going to need to have something that we have the water go through. And I just want to give something back to the residents. I just feel that, I don't know, I just can't support a $60,000 AMI right now for 350 until I have more information about a cloud, what that would cost.
Okay, these are good points about the AMI. And, you know, again, the turf replacement. You know, if this is about conservation, even though it may not necessarily be cost-effective on the turf replacement, it is something that will immediately save money. The minute you tear that turf out, you're saving water at that point. So that's a good point also. Yeah, the AMI, I agree with Councilmember Arizmendi that, you know, we really don't know what the cloud is. We shouldn't be at the cutting edge of this. I don't know how many cities have implemented this. Maybe we should wait. I mean, where we left this last time, we didn't include it in the water rate, just so the new council members know. And the thinking at the time was, well, wait till the next go around, 5 years perhaps, and then the technology is more state of the art. It's well understood, and other cities have implemented. We could learn from their best practices. So I'm okay with waiting for that. Really, you know, just listening to the arguments on the leak detection, the problem is the real big cost of this is digging up the street and fixing it, and we could do a lot of leak repair right now if that was budgeted. So what? We're going to spend $50,000 here and tell us, like Director Inman says, pretty much what we already know, you know. If this was a private water company, they would just pencil it out. It cost me $2 million to replace it. I'm only losing $1,000 worth of water a year. It ain't gonna get fixed. Besides, this water is not wasted. It's going right back into the aquifer. We're losing some money pumping it, but that's all part of the equation. I'm just not sure that that's gonna save any water or save any money. So I'm okay with waiting on the AMI. So then I think it's a matter of spreading the water around. I would support increasing the turf replacement to maybe $20,000, $40,000 and spread the money around to some of the other things.
You know, even if we could maybe give some more to the Civic Center landscape project, so people could kind of see what, if they did replace their turf, they could have something that looks like this.
Right.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
So should we try to rearrange the money here?
Some numbers.
Okay, so for turf replacement?
I liked your 40. I mean, I really would.
Doubling it?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind. I really wouldn't mind making this sort of a turf replacement heavy program.
So we have 70 to work with. So if we did, is everybody in agreement that we don't want to do the audits? I mean, the audits is something that does give back to the citizens too, they get somebody coming to their house and telling them what is wrong here, where they can save some water.
I do differ with the mayor on this one. I think especially for some of our seniors and elder residents, they would appreciate
Yeah.
having someone come out and just kind of show them.
Yeah, if you, I mean, look.
And it's that special attention, and
Yeah,
we have the
That's what
expert.
we, that's what we
So
want.
If we go 40,000 for turf, what do
Sorry,
you want?
Councilmember Arizmendi?
I was going to say, let me just throw this out there, just because Director Inman said that it possibly could be less for the AMI. Again, it's not that I'm anti-AMI, it was just hard to look at the 60,000. But could we put a placeholder if it's around 25,000 to say that if it is around that price, could we get a cloud-based estimate by this time?
I think the recommendation would be, we're going to get if we successfully implement what the council decides on tonight, in a very few months.
Okay.
We'll be looking at a new
Eligible
grant
for another
period,
round?
and by then we'll have better information for you.
And it's a good point, though, because even if it's 20,000, I mean, it'd be worth using water fund reserves to do that. I
Well,
mean, you know.
yeah, we can always,
Yeah.
we can rearrange our capital
right.
program. If we think this is something that is in our
Priority.
customer's
Yeah.
best interest, we can do that.
Okay. So then that's great. Let's keep.
So
get-
for the audits, what's the consensus here? It was $8,000 was the initial,
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I mean, that gives what, a couple hundred audits, Bruce? Yeah.
okay,
Fine with me.
increase,
What do we have left?
increase at
We have about 20,000
Civic
left.
Center landscaping, double that,
Double.
maybe 4,000?
Sure.
Yeah.
And then include the conservation
Mhm.
education pieces.
The signage and the banners,
signage
I like that.
So this, if we, then we can spread that around. Let's see, so what do we have here? We have 52,000, so that gives us 18 to go. That's still a good chunk of money here.
Did you increase
Put more,
civic?
In the landscape project.
put more in the landscape and then put more in turf
Now
removal.
that's gonna be, that's our showcase, that's what we're teaching,
Yeah.
but that's gonna have a water district, kind of
Yeah.
piece in it.
It already does.
Okay.
Yeah, it's $8,000 today, so we would, so you want to
Brick
increase
Or
it?
your bench that you're going to contribute.
Right.
You know, increase it, we said 4,000, maybe we could go even like 6 or
6, or
7,000.
yeah.
Okay, go to 6. Do you want to increase the turf replacement to,
I would just make up the difference there.
okay, so what else on the list do you want to do then? The lawn signs, signage in Kirsten
Yeah.
Yeah,
Court?
an
I would do all
education
that.
program.
Why don't you just outreach, general outreach, because
Education
there was a
program.
proposal to do, water conservation activities, so you can blanket it saying water conservation activities at X amount, 4,000,
Okay.
5,000.
So let's see, so we have 1, 2, 3 lawn signs. Those 3 things are today, why don't we just say $3,000?
yeah.
I added up the things that were on there, it's 3,700. So I would round it up to 4.
4,000,
Or 5.
yeah, okay.
Or, all right.
The lawn signage, is that what you're?
It's all the education, it's
Yeah, well, and
signs, it's
education.
Oh, and
Kirsten Court,
education, yeah.
it's a Thomas
Thomas
Paine's
Paine.
Air Escape demonstrations, it's everything that's education on there.
So that's 4,000? Okay, so 10. 58, we're up to 58,000,
Is that it?
and
So 12?
I would,
we 12,000 more we need. So put that
that's even
into-
increasing the landscaping project too?
Well, here's what we have, is turf is 40,
Yeah.
audits 8,
58.
landscape 6,000, that's the Civic Center landscaping is 6, and
Education.
4,000 for education. So is my math right, 50, that's
Yeah.
58,000.
58.
So
I would just do,
Civic up to 10, and then.
how much
you
more
have
does
another
Civic need?
It needs a lot, it needs,
For what?
the Civic,
Alyssa?
Oh.
How much total does the Civic Center project need? And we have 8,000 right now. It's a $50,000 project and we have 8,000 right now.
that's the 8,000 from
From
the,
the Water District,
we
the
haven't
first grant.
collected too much yet from
I
volunteers.
mean, I would go up to 10 then for
10,
the
yeah.
landscaping, and then I would just put the remainder in turf replacement.
Okay,
I mean,
I'm good with
And I'll be the
that.
first to sign up for turf
yeah,
replacement.
exactly.
Now, just to clarify, the
Definitely.
turf replacement, the staff report has 50 cents a square foot. You're comfortable with us putting that program
No,
out?
we should make it $1.
That's what I want to ask. You want $1 a square foot?
Well, yeah, because it says $1 up here, but then it says 50 cents down here, so I wasn't sure which one we were
I'd make
recommending.
it at least
Yeah.
$1 and just,
$1 a square foot?
And we put more money in the
and
turf
as long as there's
replacement,
money,
so-
we give it away first come, first served.
It'll be first come, first serve, and we'll date and timestamp the
We have
applications
two
as they
council members
come
that
in
already
and-
have their.
We've already got our, and a fire chief.
It's 8,000 for water out, it's 10,000 for the landscape, and 4,000 for the education from the 70,000. And so there is $48,000 for turf replacement.
There you go.
All right.
And then I think everybody's in agreement that we want to do the AMI.
Yeah.
We'll look at it, we'll
whenever
bring
we can.
better information back with the next round of grants.
Yeah, and I think we need to approach that as holistic, you know, we have a
Right.
start project and this is the end and here's how we're gonna get there,
I agree.
rather than piecemeal.
Okay.
I agree. All right, well, thank you, guys. Director Inman, thank you, and Madam City Manager, thank you. What do we, right now it's 9:20. We have the general plan item,
Bruce.
Tunnel.
and we have the tunnel, but so my question is, do we want to run through the tunnel, then take a break? Because I think everyone's probably dying up here to take a break. Or do we
long
want to
is the
take a,
tunnel?
The tunnel will be 5 minutes at the most.
so let's do the tunnel and then we'll take a break. And
Okay,
then
we're
we'll-
timing you.
Mhm.
Starting now.
All right, this is a strategic plan item. As you'll recall, staff has been directed to present to the council a plan of action for issuing an RFP for the East Tunnel. In the process of putting together this RFP, I found that the primary source of data we had on which to base an RFP had been largely lost to us. And in trying to keep up with the deadline that the goal that the council had set, without that baseline information, I contacted our hydrogeologist, Richard Slade, that some of you might recall worked with us on the Arcadia situation, and asked him for just some basic study under our $5,000 staff approval limit to get me some basic information on which to base an RFP. Subsequently, in my research and beating the bushes to find the people that originally did the famous Flutter Wheel Springs study,
Wow.
I was able to get a copy of it that provides a great deal of information on the tunnels. It was done in 1998 by Dames and Moore. And using this existing report and the information that can be provided by Mr. Slade, I think we can come up with a very good RFP, if not come up with a whole design for what we need to do with those tunnels. So what we've done and what staff is proposing here is to go ahead and have Mr. Slade continue with his preliminary studies at a cost not to exceed $5,000 and meld that information with what's contained in the Flutter Wheel Springs report and provide us a solution for not only the east tunnel and using that water, taking that water directly into our system, but also making the needed repairs to the west tunnel. So with that, I think that's about as short as I can make it, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions?
Nope.
Thank you, Director Inman. We will open this up for public comment.
Good job.
This is a receive and file, by the way.
Yes, thank you. Any questions or comments from the public?
Barbara Lee Klein. Just a question, how far do we go back with holding on to information from City Hall meetings? Because that's 1996, 98? So we should have it someplace in the archives, all these records. I believe that the tunnels were repaired back then. I know I still have them on my dad's tapes that say so. But who else is holding on to any city records? Don't say microfiche or whatever else. It shouldn't be that, we shouldn't be that short of information here in the city.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, I don't think the issue was, the records got destroyed because someone had made a photocopy and half of it just got lost. You know, no, I don't think anyone was hoarding it or anything like that.
No.
But we will receive and file this, and we will take a 5-minute recess so that we can at least get an hour with the general plan, which hopefully will be enough. All right. Without further ado, the special,
Did you adjourn formally? You should formally adjourn
excuse me.
the
Okay.
6:30 meeting and open up the 7:30 meeting.
Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So we are adjourned, and now we are reconvening the special meeting on the general plan. Madam City Manager, or is it Director Cardoso?
It's Director Cardoso.
Okay.
It'll go quicker that way.
Yeah, I was going to say, and Director, I think we've all been through this. To the extent you have a presentation, thank you, but, to the extent it's short, probably shorter the better here. So, thank you.
Yes. Good evening again. As you know, you will continue tonight to do your review, and it will include implementation programs and sections for tree preservation, waste management and recycling, air quality, fire safety, law enforcement, public services, and flood landslide. As you know, the Planning Commission has reviewed these items and has recommended them for your review. So they're ready for you, and if you'd like to move forward the same way you did last time, if you prefer page by page, and then if there are any issues or questions, I'm available, and we can pretty much move forward at this point.
Thank you very much. Yeah, please.
Director Cardoso, could you just kind of explain again the process? This has been vetted by the Planning Commission already. They've gone through it and
That
you've
is correct.
incorporated their comments?
That is correct. Initially, of course, the draft was recommended by the General Plan Steering Committee.
Yeah.
Went to the Planning Commission. They have reviewed these sections and the corresponding implementation program. I went ahead and made the changes that they recommended to be made, and they're incorporated here. In the section, you will see red lines, and those are the recommended changes. The implementation, there are no red lines. I just went ahead and made those changes, and that's what you're looking at without
Yeah.
red lines.
Okay.
That's pretty
If I could just add one other thing about process that might help you all is prior to this coming back to the general plan, it did go to all the various commissions that, like the tree preservation went to the tree commission, and the various staff members and the fire department and the fire chief. So all of those actually were vetted through those organizations and those departments prior, basically updated by them, and then it came to the general plan. So this will be like the fourth time people have seen it.
Great. Well, to that point, it seems pretty well buttoned up. It's a very, very great document, and reading through it, there's not a whole lot there, for me to opine on or even questions. So, well done once again. I think that, to me, reading through this, I think we could even go kind of chapter by chapter and kind of, we can, on the first chapter, which is tree preservation, maybe we just ask, does anyone have any questions or comments on it as a whole? And if you do, we can just jump into it. But I would propose not probably page flipping. Let's go chapter by chapter and see if there's any things that people want to address. So.
I like it the way it is.
Okay. The trees, chapter 4?
Yeah.
Okay.
I do too, since we have that tree master plan now, which I assume is consistent with the general plan here. It's been a lot of work done on that. I really have no comments at all on it.
I didn't either on chapter 4.
And for me.
Councilmember Arizmendi?
No comments. I just didn't know what the Community Forest Management Plan and Legacy Tree Program is, and just
passed
where
it.
do you find those?
We can email that out to the council. That was something that was done with the
got done.
previous council, just a relatively new document. We'll email that out to all the council members.
Okay. That's all I had.
All right. Section 6, the waste management recycling. I had one question that popped out of me where we say on the first page at city yard that the trash is collected and taken to the city yards to be picked up by by Athens, I guess, our waste disposal contractor. Is that right? Do they use the city yards as almost like a transfer station? That seemed odd to me. Yes. So, I guess why? I mean, has that always been done? Are we okay doing? Are we permitted? And
Well, it's not used, they don't take all of our trash there. The vast majority of our trash, our solid waste, is taken to Shoal Canyon, to the
Right.
MRF that Athens operates. But there are some areas of the canyon where we're having to take trash containers, take those burro trucks, for example, and transfer the trash there from bins into trucks and so on. But it's really a minor part of our operation.
Got it. It's not sitting there for
No.
hours or anything like that, no. Okay.
So does all of it go to Shoal Canyon? Or doesn't anything go down to the facility in Covina?
I think a lot of it does go down to the facility in Covina now. Actually, I don't know exactly where it all goes now with some of the waste by rail and other things that
Yep.
are going
I
on.
know they're really trying to
Point. Now that
recycle.
Twenty Hills is closed. I can't say with certainty where it's all going, but I know a portion of it does go to Shoal.
Thank you, Director Inman. Any questions on the waste management?
Comment.
Mhm.
I just thought it was important to call out the contract with Athens in the overview of existing conditions and the time period, because is it a 25-year, 50-year?
It's a 25-year evergreen, right?
Okay, and I just think it should be called out as an existing condition and when the start date is, because that's important to know.
Add in the information regarding the term of our current contract.
Right, and who it is in the existing overview section, the opening.
Any objection to that? That's fine with me.
That's fine.
Okay. Air quality. This one does not have a single mark for me.
None for me.
None for me either.
All right.
All okay? You just-
I think so. And we will open this up for questions at the end. Chapter 3, hazard prevention.
I did have a couple, and Chief's still here, if he could come down. There were a couple things that they changed, and I understand that you were at the planning commission when they made those changes and you were okay with them. Like, on page 3, it says, Table 3-1 outlines the large historic fires in Los Angeles County. They wanted to add Los Angeles County and struck out Southern California. I just wanted to make sure you were okay with the changes the planning commission made.
Yeah, that was.
Okay, as long as you're fine with it. Just checking.
I had a question on page 5, and it's for policy HZ 1.1, which is maintain a combination volunteer and paid fighting force. And I guess this is more of a question based on my ignorance of what we are doing here by, approving the general plan. So let's say we approve the general plan with this very specific policy, which I think we're all in agreement of. It's a great policy to have our own combination volunteer and paid force. What if we get down the road, and no offense to the chief or any of the firefighters, where we can't afford that? And, we're thinking about outsourcing our fire. And the general plan says that one of the policies that we've implemented is maintaining our own force.
I can answer that.
Okay, I hope so. It's tricky.
You would just do a general plan amendment.
Ah.
You're allowed for a year.
Not, we're not foreshadowing anything here, but, it's something that just struck me or jumped out, so. So you can do a general, and I guess at that point, you can do a general plan amendment for,
Yeah, it's
for
really,
specific things.
yeah, but you have to be very specific, and you have to go through the whole process, and you have to go through the community, so you want to get it right the first time.
Yep.
But if there's something that happens that you'd need to change it, yeah, of course you can.
If I may suggest, you could also perhaps add language, if financially feasible, something like that, that adds.
I'm okay with it. No, I'm okay with the language.
Yeah.
I'm okay with it. More of a question just of planning for, contingencies that we hopefully.
Let's be honest, by the time we make any of those decisions, we'll probably still be going through the general plan.
That's right.
I have to say, I always note the time I've been on the general plan. The very first town hall meeting was on November 14th. 4 years ago.
Wow.
And I know that because my granddaughter was born 6 weeks early on November 14th, and she's 4 years old on Friday.
That's crazy. Section 2, flood landslide. I have a question on page 12, and so I guess my question, and it goes to really our first policy, which is HZ 7.1 on page 15. So maybe we'll go there, because it's a bit, I think it tees up the question better. So our objective is to provide adequate response in case of flooding emergency, and then the policy is, in the event of a flood, coordinate all these departments to work together. I guess my question, and I have written here, is, well, what is that, like, what does that look like? What is that plan? Do we have a plan, written somewhere?
Yes, we do.
Okay, and I guess
We have
that's my only,
a hazard.
so,
Mhm.
sorry, go ahead.
We have our emergency preparedness plans and a hazard mitigation plan. There's a number of plans that dictate how we do this.
Mhm. So does it make sense, and I'm fine keeping it as it is, but does it make sense to say as stated in whatever the, emergency
In city
preparedness?
plans.
I just feel like the way it's worded now, it's basically saying, oh, in the event of a flood, we'll coordinate, or I want to make sure that people know that there is a plan, Is that not striking anyone,
Basically, when I say we already have a coordination.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, because we do. I mean, we have a plan to coordinate everyone in a certain way, which is in our emergency preparedness plan.
But it says that you're gonna utilize your incident command and the national incident management systems and all plans within or something, if you wanna add that.
Here's why it's so important, is table 3.2. The Sierra Madre Dam is only 53% capable of a design debris event.
That's right. And that's really my concern, right? If we do have an event, what are we doing? And the objective here is to provide adequate response in case of a flooding emergency. And, I mean, the policy does say that we're gonna coordinate between the agencies, so maybe I'm just making something out of
One
nothing.
thing about floods, though, is that unlike an earthquake, is that it builds up and you can kind of see it coming,
Yeah, that's right. So we can keep it as is. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. So it goes to the same point. On the implementation on page 1, Chapter X Implementation Program, or Implementation 3, the city shall continue to improve emergency coordination between the city's internal departments. I guess that kind of going along the same lines. It just seems, and I think we're doing ourselves, somewhat of a injustice. It sounds like we're going to continue to improve. It sounds like we have a plan that is in place. So why not pat ourselves on the back and say, why not say IM3 is, we will utilize the plan that we have in place rather than continue to improve? I mean, are we really continuing to improve, or are we just relying on the plan that we've already put in place?
To continue to make adjustments to it. You remember, this is 25 years out,
Well,
so
Yeah.
continue to maintain and improve and update.
I guess that one, it just strikes me as being almost like an intangible implementation policy, if you will, or whatever I guess this is the policy. So if you read the other ones, like the city shall amend the grading hillside management zone, et cetera, and it's pretty definite in nature. And, the city shall require that all new tract developments, et cetera. And then we get to this one that says wow, sorry, I have a mint in here.
Yeah, blame it on the mint.
The city shall continue to improve. And then it's like, well, what does that really mean? So, but again, I'll defer to the council as long as everyone's comfortable with it. I just wanted to call that out. Everyone's fine? All right.
I just want to make a general comment that I made last time we talked about general plan, is just to do an overall check. All the objectives read differently.
They do.
Tenses, and
They do.
it should have that consistent flow throughout the entire general
I
plan.
marked that a few times, but I'm not sure if, I think it'd be really hard to try to get it all to line up.
Well, you can tell each chapter is done by the same writer, so they have the same tenses, but then I think there's still a way to, just to clean it up a bit. And I think you're gonna do those with the first 2 chapters that we went through, or 3 chapters.
And I do think that Councilmember Arizmendi, that they will be looking for volunteers to help with the editing and
Really,
final
Councilmember Del Mar?
Might if
I
your
think
first,
you feel
might if your first
connection.
volunteer.
Well, you obviously have a really strong connection to that, so Leticia should be writing your name down for that.
Community Services, Chapter 4. And I have a question. We say that we have 1.2 police officers per 1,000 residents. Can that be right? Do we only have 13.2 police officers?
Sworn police officers.
But, so, are you saying?
Not all the staff in the department is, I think, 22? Yeah.
So, and that's including the chief and the captain? So
No.
I guess that was my concern, because I think we're
The
using
officers.
police officers here as a term of art, you know, the rank and file police officers, where we have uniformed police, and I wouldn't even say personnel, but we have uniformed officers, including the chief and our captains and our sergeants, right, that aren't included in that number. So, I mean, we
You can
do.
revise that if you'd like.
You know, it's not a huge, but I think it's more probably 2 officers per 1,000 probably, right? We probably have 22 or 23.
Standard statistics that, you know, when the police departments and the Department of Justice pull those numbers, we're pulling those same
Got it.
statistics from that.
So they never include sergeants and captains, and they only, okay, well,
Police officers.
well, then it probably makes sense to use that number
Well,
then.
and that 13 number does include our sergeants and our, but it doesn't include our management staff.
It doesn't include captain and above.
Right.
Okay, well, then that's fine. Just seemed like a low number, huh?
It is a low number.
That's a good question. I mean, is that a low number compared to surrounding communities?
We haven't looked at that in a long
The city of
time,
Los
so I
Angeles
couldn't
has
tell you.
10,000 police officers.
Yeah.
The last time I looked at one of those studies was probably 4 or
3
5
million
years
people.
ago, and we were on the lower side.
Actually, I would have thought we were on the higher side because our population's so small and the minimum staffing, I think. It's been years since we
Okay.
looked at
It's
it.
been a while.
Might be.
I would think it's
might be
high, but-
interesting to know the answer to that.
Yep. Anything else on this chapter?
And just again, Captain Ortiz pointed to that, we did have, once again, this was written by the law enforcement, and we did have the planning commission cross out some of the objectives, and I wanted to make sure that was okay with the police department.
The chief did review these.
The chief did review these, okay, thank you.
And I assume they had a valid reason for doing it. I
And
mean,
he was here, he was in the meeting when these changes were made.
So I'm sure that was just, he was able to update
Yeah.
them and get in more.
Barbara Lee?
I just asked, since you're on that chapter, is it also include something in there with the citywide certified volunteers that we have here in Sierra Madre, and you could put a green leaf by that? Because they'll jump in when the other officers and fire department get called out to their own towns in case of emergency. We'll have our own volunteers still here in town.
Yeah, well, it has it right there. It says C4.4, work with Sierra Madre's Community Emergency Response Team to have a unified and coordinated
Has its
response.
own
Yeah,
goal.
so.
It
And-
doesn't get a green leaf though, because the green leaf is only for sustainability.
It has a green
It
leaf
has a
on it
green
right
leaf.
now. That, I think
It has
that might
some
be a
leaf.
mistake.
Some of them, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, public services.
I think I just had a general question about the telecommunications section, because in all of the other sections, it talks about, you know, the general water service, general sewer service, but under telecommunications, it just called out for public service goals, but not things like, I don't know, like a Verizon cell tower, FiOS type of thing. And I didn't know if there was a reason that that wasn't identified and left out, and if it's important at all, I don't know. But it just seemed that telecommunications just focused on public service goals.
Excuse me.
Because what? Existing conditions?
Page 38, is it page 38?
Yeah, so it's just talking about, where we are existing, okay.
But on page 38, I'm sorry, on page 38, I'm not sure I want to take out where they've redlined upgrading existing deficient systems. I kind of would like to add that in. Keep that in there.
Oh, you know why they took it out? Because it says to serve new development.
Where is it? Where are
So
we?
we can take out and
Last four
expanding. But we should have, I want to make sure we do upgrade our existing deficient system somehow. We have that in there.
Okay, so I'm gonna go back to this telecommunications thing, just because I really want FiOS in our town. I don't think we're ever gonna get it, but
You're not gonna, no matter what you write here.
yeah, it's not gonna change it. But I mean, is it because is it the way that our city is structured that
No,
it's,
no,
what is?
it is not. It's Verizon making an economic decision.
Of how many customers, we're too small.
Director Inman, quick question. On our water delivery system, I just want to make sure the numbers are right. It says water distributed from 5 reservoir sites, okay, on page 35. And then in the next sentence, we say that Sierra Madre is divided into 3 water pressure zones, each served by 2 reservoirs.
Correct.
So how does that math work?
Grove Reservoir is actually, it's one structure but 2 reservoirs. There's one
Okay.
inside the other.
So that's how 5 becomes 6? Okay. And you say that here, it's 2 separately, but I just, yeah, I wasn't quite sure if I was understanding that, so.
Just for clarification, so at the bottom of page 38, where it says upgrading existing deficient systems and are we restarting that? And I wasn't clear on what was decided.
I think we were going to just include upgrading existing deficient systems, period.
Period.
Okay.
And dropping the
Upgrading
rest.
deficient systems, okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well done. I'll open this up for public comment. And seeing none, bring it back. Well, thank you again to the General Plan Steering Committee, especially the chair, Councilmember Del Mar, and the Planning Commission for going through this and making our job in life pretty easy. So with that, we can.
One quick thing I wanted to mention, that there is a special meeting scheduled for December 2nd to do 5 additional chapters, but currently our December 9th agenda is on the light side.
Let's add it onto
So if the
that,
council
yeah.
would like, we don't need to schedule a special meeting. I can add it to your
Please.
December 9th meeting, so we don't confuse the public like we sort of did this evening.
Are we bringing back the land use maps in
The land
December?
use maps aren't coming back until January.
What are the 5 chapters?
The 5 chapters: Parks and Recreation, Community, cultural, and special events, transit services, library services. Oh, the land use map is on there.
It is on that,
Yeah.
and that.
Okay.
That's gonna.
I didn't notice
Oh,
that,
on
I'm
December
sorry.
2nd.
Well, and we had talked about this
You're right,
before,
thank you,
because that's gonna
Councilmember
take
Delmar.
some time.
Yeah. So maybe we
Um,
do need to leave it separate.
Well, how light is the December 9th agenda at this point? Because I would be fine putting this, to the extent we don't have any public hearings, putting this first. I mean, putting the general plan first, and then if there's anything else pressing.
I think everything on December 9th could be pushed forward.
Right, so that's my point, is, let's put
Take
the general
everything
plan
else off and just
first,
put this on it.
and then get everything done, have as much time as we need, and then,
Yeah,
you know.
that would be good.
We can do that. I don't think anything is,
No, we'll do that on the
no,
9th.
we'll do it on the
Just on
9th.
regular schedule.
But any items currently scheduled for the 9th will move to the first meeting in January.
If we don't get to them.
What he's
Well,
saying,
look, if it can carry over, because
Yeah.
January is also
Okay,
light. If
that's
it can
fine.
carry over, we'll carry over. If it's something that
Yeah.
time urgent, we'll leave it on.
Great.
So yes, cancel the 2nd.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Like,
Great. And then, so we have, just a reminder to the public, we have a strategic planning session tomorrow morning at 8:30 at the Youth Activity Center. We usually get a couple residents, usually the same ones that show up, but everyone is free to come. And any items for future agendas? With that?
you know what,
Yeah,
I
go ahead.
actually did want to get more information about, I know that all of us received an email from Mr. Gold about a stopgap ordinance, and I just would like to get more information on that.
On what?
Like a stopgap
Would-
ordinance on mansions, and seeing if something can be done between now and completion of the general plan, so I'd just like to get more information on.
But we
what
already
that
have a
would
building
look
moratorium.
like. That would take place and that would take precedence over.
Yeah, he didn't
anything else.
understand the difference.
Okay.
The building moratorium and a water moratorium, we have two things in place.
So with that in place right now, that really does take, that would
We
take
can't go,
precedence
we
over that.
can't go into too much discussion because it's not agendized,
okay.
but I do want to mention that if there's a water meter on the site, development could happen, so you could have something demolished and something replacing it, which is different than the new development, so
Ah,
if you would like to,
well,
but nothing, if there's not, if it's vacant, there's not a meter, it's not an issue, but we still have properties where there is a meter, where there is a home that's being demolished and a new one built.
okay, so then I would like just to get more information about that.
Okay, I guess you can,
Yeah.
what our options are regarding development where somebody does have a meter. Oh, just construction that isn't subject to the moratorium.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Thanks.
All right, anything else? With that,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
All right, good night. See you guys tomorrow.